the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
I need your help to get to the year 1985.
You are listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Welcome. Fade to Black. Bespoke radio for the masses. Today is Wednesday, August 12th. 225 days into the new year, 140 days left. We are live from the City of Angel Studios right here in downtown Burbank, California. City of Angels, COA Vapor. Makers of the Fade to Black e-juice. Oh yeah, I'm a user. It's called Fader Loops. Just go to the COA banner right now, jimmychurchradio.com. I know you vape. The entire world vapes. Go and get you some. Use the promo code Jimmy for that Fader Not special. For KJCR and the Game Changer Network and KGRA, The Planet, I am your oh-so humble host, Jimmy Church. What is cracking, everybody? Tonight, we have very special guest Christopher O'Brien will be with us. The call-in number is 323-825-5045, or you can Skype in Fade to Black 14. Fade to Black and the number 14. This show is about 2 years in the making. I'm very excited to have Christopher on the show. Somebody smart. And we will be discussing all kinds of things tonight. And, of course, all of his research in to the San Luis Valley, Colorado, 10 years, 3 books. His new book is Stalking the Herd. I've been pouring through it for the last couple of hours. I just got my copy of the book this afternoon and going through it. It's an amazing read. It's about 6 tons. It's 600 pages. Page-turning pages, I might add. Christopher O'Brien, our guest tonight. All right, I would like to welcome everybody listening all around the world, all across the United States, hither and thither, to and fro, back and forth, up and down, east and west, north and south, far and near. Welcome. This is Fade to Black. It's going to be a great evening tonight. I'm really looking forward to it. And tonight, too, after the show, the big Perseids meteor shower is going to be cranking tonight. It's going to peak over here on the West Coast at about 1 a.m., between 12 and 1. As you know, we're in Burbank, so we're lit up like a Christmas tree, but I'm going to be out there to see what we can see. Yeah, by all reports right now, 60 to 100. You know, I can't. Last year it was pretty good, but we're in an area that's all lit up. I hope you're somewhere where it's nice and dark and you can go check it out. But it's always a great event. So anyway, that's tonight, man. I'm just fired up about that. And here in LA, you would have to drive head out to the Mojave Desert or go somewhere where you don't have the light pollution. that you have here in Los Angeles. You know, there's, I don't know how many tens of millions of people live here, and everything seems to be lit up. But that's what's going on tonight, fired up. So after the show tonight, I'm going to head outside, and I'm going to look to the heavens and check everything out. Did you get your T-shirts? Have you gotten your Fade to Black T-shirts? You got to get yourself one. And you can do that. They're all in stock. Just go to jimmychurchradio.com. Go to the shop page. All the sizes, everything is there. But you want to look good, wear your colors, and send me a picture. Wherever you are, send me a picture. We'll post it. And everything includes shipping. We can go international. Did a bunch of international shipping last week, man. That was crazy. Talk about expensive. But anyway, everything is there. All the sizes, everything is in stock. I'm ready. Let's get this show cracking tonight. I just want to get the yakking out of the way because I want to get to Christopher on the bottom of the hour and on time. Studio Dome SD1, get your buddy 4-port USB charger for free. $19.95 value. That is a special deal just for the Fader Knots. Get yourself an SD1, voice-activated Bluetooth speaker. Get yourself the buddy 4-port USB charger for free. All of that just for the Fader Knots. That's $59.99. Get you $40 off and free shipping. Just go click on the Studio Dome banner over at jimmychurchradio.com. All of this helps support the show. All right. With that, let's get this show cracking. Gotta say, a big, and I want to see Twitter light up right now. I want a big happy birthday to our very own producer, Renee. Renee's birthday is today. Happy birthday, Renee. Yes, it's hard to believe, but she's only 29. She's 29 years old today. Happy birthday, Renee. I want to see Twitter light up right now. Everybody wish Renee a happy birthday. Nobody works harder for this show than Renee. Thank you, Renee. And if I listed everything that Renee did for this show, she does everything but host. Thank you, Renee. Happy, happy, happy birthday. 29 years old. Never looked better. Also today, Casey Affleck is 40. And you know why Casey Affleck makes the list? Because he's a better actor than his brother. Casey Affleck, 40 years old. Our dead guy's birthday today. I had to go here. I could have gone in a bunch of different directions, but I stopped right here. I had to do it. I had to do it. Happy birthday to the very dead. Buck Owens, 1929 to 2006. He died at the age of 76. And he was the singer of the group The Buckaroos. And believe it or not, they were known for pioneering the Bakersfield sound. And if you go to Bakersfield right now, here in California, you drive out there, it's in the middle of the desert. You drive out there, you pull into town, and it's right there. Buck Owens, home of Buck Owens. It's really true. Right here in Southern California, the Bakersfield sound. He released 10 number one country albums. 10 number ones albums from 1963 to 1968. And, you know, I think of Buck Owens, I always think of that red, white, and blue acoustic guitar that he had. It was probably a Gibson, I think. But anyway, that's what I think of. He was the All-American cat, no doubt. And he hosted the TV series Hee Haw with Roy Clark from 1969 all the way to 1986. And I, like everybody else in the country, no matter what kind of music you were into, you watched Hee Haw. You did. And anybody, Holographic just says, just tweeted out, Buck Owens is my cousin. Is that right? True story? Holographic? Is that right? You need to call in and give us a Buck Owens story. But we all loved Hee Haw. Funny show, good show, cool show, and an American show, 1969 to 1986. Happy birthday, to the one and only Buck Owens. Moment of silence. Also today, we lost one of our own. It was announced on their website, unknowncountry.com, after a long and courageous struggle. Ann Strieber, wife of author Whitley Strieber, for 45 years. She died yesterday. She passed. Long struggle with cancer. She passed away yesterday, August 11th, 2015. And I remember I talked to Whitley about, I'm going to say 6 months ago. It might have been a little longer. And he had just brought Ann home from the hospital. And he said, things are looking good, but I'm taking care of Ann. I said, you should. That's exactly what you should be doing. And he says, it's been tough. And that was then, and here we are today. She passed. She went on to the other side, Ann Strieber. And rest in peace. And Whitley, you've got a gazillion friends and fans out there, and they're all focused to you right now. Be strong. And there you go. Okay, our thoughts and prayers are with you, Whitley. Ann Strieber. There you go. All right, kind of a rough way to start the show, but Ann was his co-host too as well, and she was great. She was great to listen to, and there you go. All right, I could go on about that for a while. Let's not have a complete downer. It's just that again, we have lost one of our own. Okay. All right. Follow us on Twitter at JChurchRadio. If you want to hang out with us in the sandbox, last night we did over 3,000 tweets. That was a real barn burner last night. Get yourself TweetDeck. Get yourself some TweetDeck. Get a column going, hashtag F2B. That is the sandbox. Come and hang out with us. Follow us on Twitter at JChurchRadio. And jump in. Put your toe in the sand and come hang out. None of the Fader Knots bite. Come hang out. It's a great way to participate in the show. The show is real time. I've got email to my right. I've got Twitter to my left. And everything is rapid fire all night long. Email is jimmy@jimmychurchradio.com. If you want to write into the show, make it good. Get it past the producers here. It will make its way in here to the studio. It's very simple. All right? Twitter is at JChurchRadio. And then I also have hashtag F2BQ. That's Fade to Black Questions. I have my own little column there in TweetDeck. If you have any questions in real time, it will happen during the show. All right, there you go. Tonight, Christopher O'Brien is with us. Tomorrow night is Thursday. It is Fader night. Tomorrow night's going to be open lines all night long, and it is and shall remain my favorite night of the week. This is Fade to Black, bespoke radio for the masses on the Game Changer Network and KGRA, the planet. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. When I come back, we got all the stuff we got to get out of the way, all the news that you know nothing about. And then at the bottom of the hour, author, researcher, man of the world, a man's man, Christopher O'Brien will be with us. It's going to be a great evening. Stay right there. I'll be back.
You're listening to Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
Fade to Black will now pause for alien identification.
The station that talks the net. KGRA Radio. What's up, revolutionaries? It's me, Jimmy Church. Do you have an IRS or state tax issue? Well, I did, and I called national tax experts. My problems were fixed, done, fini, and man, I gotta tell you, it was a relief. National Tax Experts are a recognized tax office that services clients in all 50 states. Doesn't matter where you live. Give them a call. I'm telling you, they take the time to understand each and every client's individual financial status as well as their financial goals. And that's exactly what you need, my brother, when you're taking on the evil 3-letter. So, seriously, give them a call today at 1-877-909-5444. Again, 1-877-909-5444. Or go check out their website, www.nattaxexperts.com. That's NATTAXEXPERTS.com. Tell them Jimmy sent you.
9 out of 10 geneticists agree.
Fade to Black is not your father's radio show on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, The Planet.
Hi, this is Chase Kletsky with Fate Magazine Radio, and you're listening to Jimmy Church and Fade to Black on the Game Changer Network and the KGRA digital broadcast station, where the Fade or Nots rock.
Hi, this is Rob Reiner from Anvil, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
What's up? I'm Chris. What up? This is Kyle Massey, and you're listening to Jimmy Church Radio.
All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. You know what time it is. I'm popping pills. EnergyWave.com. Oh, yeah. Got to be on my toes tonight. Christopher O'Brien is going to just hit me with some real knowledge. I'm looking forward to it. Nothing like getting up in the morning knowing that by the end of the day I'm going to be all that much smarter. And that's what this show is all about. Knowledge, investigations. Let's do this, man. I just took my Power Vite. I took it right now. Nothing coated, nothing hidden like corporate vitamins. You can actually see the little specks of nutrients on every single little tab. You can even smell the quality. And I love the smell of vitamins. We all know that. I do it every day on the show. It is a complete multivitamin mineral formula designed to naturally boost your energy. And I need it every night of the week. That's right. They have the same good bacteria found in better yogurts. It helps you absorb all of those nutrients now. The Green Turtle Bay Vitamin Company are dedicated nutritionists and have been producing Power Vites for over 20 years right here in America. Just go to EnergyWave.com. EnergyWave.com. Use the promo code KGRA. Get free shipping on your order. You can also call 1-800-TURTLE-5. That's 1-800-TURTLE-5. Live operators are standing by. That's 1-800-887-8535. On this day in history, back in 2000, 15 years ago, gosh, I can't even believe it, the Russian sub Kursk sinks with 118 on board. Wow, 15 years. Doesn't seem like it. Seems like that was yesterday. Fader facts. 8th President Martin Van Buren created the word okay. That's a Fader fact. During his campaign, Old Kinderhook, okay, get it? Old Kinderhook clubs from Van Buren's hometown supported the president. And there you go. Now you know what okay means. Before you say okay, think about that one. All the news that you know nothing about, well, you know about this. It's been all over the news all day today. Series of explosions shook the northern Chinese city of Tianjin all day today, killing 17 people and injuring more than 300. And right now, I mean, that's according to state media, but that's right before the show tonight. The cause, nobody knows. The initial explosion erupted a warehouse for a logistics company at a port area, And the company was identified as Tianjin Dongjiang Port Rihai International Logistics Company Limited. The state-run Xinhua news agency reported the explosion tore through a warehouse storing dangerous and chemical goods. Insane. The explosions, oh man, they almost look atomic, man. I mean, those are brutal. Absolutely brutal. And there you go. Now, if there's a blessing in this, the storage facility was not near a populated area. But man, geez, I've been watching the films all day today. Has Nefertiti's tomb finally been found? Have you seen these reports? Nicholas Reeves, a British archaeologist at the University of Arizona, believes he has found the resting place in the tomb of King Tut. Yes. Now, Reeves theorizes that the size of King Tut's tomb is less than appropriate. We all know it was a tiny tomb, and for an Egyptian king, it was really small. But instead, he seems to solve that conundrum that has baffled archaeologists for years, including myself, explaining that its inadequate size is because the actual tomb was built for Nefertiti. Now, what he has done is he's taken analysis of the room in high-res images, and there are some strange cracks on the back wall that suggest a door. And then that is where Nefertiti is resting. And wouldn't that be amazing if you thought King Tut had a tomb? Think about this for a second. Now, the bummer about all of this is that they're probably not going to take a crack at that door for a few years. King Tut's tomb is a major tourist destination. That's the first thing. Second, it's very small. Third, how are you going to excavate? So there you go. But it looks, they've got to get some ground penetrating radar in there. They've got to examine this wall, but it looks interesting. And I've seen the cracks myself. And when you stop and you look at it, I don't know why Howard Carter didn't just keep on going, because I'm sure those cracks were there when he got in. A medieval sword inscribed with a mysterious message is stumping researchers and causing quite a stir among armchair historians like myself. I've seen the pictures. I've seen the code. I don't know. This is great. This has got to send this over to Scott Wolter. The 13th century weapon was found in the River Witham in Lincolnshire in the United Kingdom in 1825. It now belongs to the British Museum. Now, it looks fairly ordinary when you first look at it. It looks like a really cool sword. It measures 38 inches long. It's steel. It's got a double edge and a hilt that's shaped like a cross. It's your classic sword. But on one side of the sword is this inscription, and the inscription is made with gold wire that has been inlaid into the steel. And the inscription reads, with no spaces, check this out. It's got a plus symbol, right? Plus minus, got a plus, and then followed by all caps, NDXOXCHWDRGHDXORVI with a plus symbol. That's what it reads. Nobody can decode this thing. And it's inlaid in gold. And it looks really cool, too, by the way. I mean, if I'm a sword collector, that's what I want in my collection right there. But this, it's interesting. I'm going to post the code, and let's see what we can do, Fadernauts. Let's everybody get our brains into this, because everybody's trying to crack it. And wouldn't it be really cool if our family cracked the code of that sword? I'll post it during the commercial break before we get Christopher O'Brien in here. Electric cars. We all had slot car tracks, right? Us young men, right? We all had slot car tracks and HO tracks. Electric cars, well, they need charging. It's just like gasoline tanks need filling. And today, The UK government announced that later this year it will begin testing electric highways designed to power electric and hybrid vehicles. The technology would enable electric vehicle drivers to travel longer distances without having to stop and charge the car. Now, the point is, we all thought about this. Why not? Slot car, it works, right? Now, why wouldn't there be a technology that would be inlaid in the road that would allow your car to charge while you're driving? It makes perfect sense, doesn't it? And I can't believe this should have been part of all the EV technology out there. Going back to the earliest cars, electric vehicles, this should have been on the front burner. I mean, it should have just been there. Right? Am I wrong? No, you know I'm right. A Michigan inmate was awarded $1,251 after a jury ruled his rights were violated when a guard barred him from hugging his wife during a prison visit. Kevin King, 52 years old, who was serving a life sentence for a 1982 murder, was awarded $1 in Detroit federal court last week for a violation of his First Amendment rights and $1,250 in punitive damages. Jurors found that the prison officer, Tiffany Williams, retaliated against King and his wife for previous complaints when Williams ordered them not to touch each other during a 2012 visit at the G. Robert Cotton Correctional Facility in Jackson, Michigan. $1,251. The Russian government, that's actually apropos. The Russian government has threatened to block Reddit, yes, throughout the country, unless Reddit eliminates a discussion thread that teaches readers how to grow drug-producing plants. Yes, the warning coincides with recent blockades on the Pirate Bay and similar threats against YouTube. There you go. That's all the news that you know nothing about. This is Fade to Black. Tonight, when I come back after the break, we will be joined by Christopher O'Brien. We have a lot to talk about tonight with Christopher. And why doesn't my stuff queue when it's queued? I just don't get that. It's still queued. It's still queued. It's still queued. It's a delay that I can't tolerate. There it is. There it is. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Bespoke radio for the masses on the Game Changer Network and KGRA The Planet. Follow us on Twitter at JChurchRadio. After this short break, Christopher O'Brien. Stay right there. I'll be right back.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
The station that talks the net. KGRA Radio.
Hello, I'm Katie, and you're listening to my main man, Jimmy Church, on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Hi, this is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black. Today, everybody, the Fadernauts and planet Earth is vaping, and I'm very proud to announce our very own e-juice. When we were approached by City of Angels Vapor about Fade to Black e-juice, I wanted to make sure that it was the very best, and that the flavors were something that I could create myself, and we did just that. Introducing Fade to Black Fader Loops. This will take you right back to Saturday morning cartoons and your favorite bowl of Fruity Loopy cereal. Just click on the banner or go to www.coavapor.com. Enter the promo code Jimmy for the Fader Not special. That's www.coavapor.com. Go back, Lee Tappy.
Hi, this is Ray Hobbs here, repping the planet, and you're listening to my good friend, Jimmy Church, Fade to Black, on the Game Changer Network and the KGRA Digital Broadcast Station.
Imagine no longer being tied down to your computer, but having the freedom to take live talk radio with you anywhere you go. TalkStream Live introduces our first ever iPhone application. The talk shows you follow now follow you, and your iPhone is now the fastest and easiest way to stay connected to the best talk radio on the internet. Let TalkStream Live transform the way you listen to radio. Listen to live talk shows 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Mobile talk radio from TalkStream Live. Now available in the iTunes App Store.
This is Toby Kebbell. You're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com. Don't hurt me, Jimmy. I'm only little.
Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier. And this is Ari Gold. We're the Honey Brothers.
Yes.
We're of the Honey Brothers. Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier.
And I'm Ari Gold.
We're the Honey Brothers.
And you're listening to Jimmy Church.
The Revolution.
Attention, all Fade or Not. Studio Dome has a special deal on their SD1 Bluetooth speaker. Just go to jimmychurchradio.com, click on their banner, enter the promo code Jimmy, and you get $40 off and free shipping on the SD1. It's voice activated, comes with a USB antenna, cables, and a carry bag. Never listen to your phone, tablet, or laptop speakers ever again. It's the only way to listen to Fade to Black. That's jimmychurchradio.com, Studio Dome banner, promo code Jimmy. Go Beckley Teppy.
This is Micah Hanks of the Gralien Report, and you're listening to Jimmy Church on Fade to Black, across the globe on the Game Changer Radio Network and the one and only KGRA Radio, The Planet.
All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. Bespoke radio for the masses. Tonight's going to be one of those nights. Let's just kick back, pull up the covers, get your beverage of choice, fire up a heater, and let's get our knowledge on. This show is, tonight's broadcast has been 2 years in the making. 2 years. Christopher O'Brien. From 1992 to 2002, investigative journalist, investigated and or logged hundreds of unexplained events reported in the San Luis Valley located in south central Colorado and north central New Mexico. Christopher has appeared on over 70 TV shows and documentaries and hundreds of radio programs, including Ancient Aliens Coast to Coast, UFO Hunters, Inside Edition, Extra, Sightings, Unsolved Mysteries, Unexplained Files, and his investigations have been featured by the History, Learning, Travel, Discovery channels, the BBC, Nippon TV, the Associated Press, Denver Post, Albuquerque Journal, Fate, and UFO magazines. I would like to welcome to the program Christopher O'Brien. Christopher, how are you tonight, sir?
Hey, Jimmy. Yeah, that's right. You're right. 2 years in the making, but you didn't have to read all that stuff. That was my long form bio.
I liberally edited it down the best I could do, man, and I still ran out of breath. So there you go.
Yeah. Well, it's good to be here finally, and congratulations on your 300th show. I know how difficult it is to produce a quality radio show, and the fact that you do it night in and night out is just awe-inspiring to me, and kudos and continued success.
Well, thank you for that, but I'm going to throw it right back at you. When I started following you with the San Luis Valley stuff, I was sucked in. And I just thought, this is like a real things going on. And when I'm gonna start here, then we're gonna go backwards, okay? If you don't mind, we're gonna go behind before San Luis. But when you first got into those investigations, and you did write 3 books, when you got into it, where was your frame of mind? And then after 10 years, where was your head at?
Wow, really good question. I've never actually been asked that before. And, that's interestingly, when I started out, I literally, we had a pretty amazing UFO sighting in, late November of 92 over the town. I was gigging with a band. I was not around, but a sizable percentage of the little town that I lived in, Crestone, Colorado, a sizable percentage of folks, 18 to 20 people that I know of, witnessed 200-foot ovals come down out of the mountains. They hovered over the end of one of the creeks that has a bunch of trees, cottonwood trees that extend out into the San Luis Valley, and it hovered there, and then the objects kind of split from one another and zipped off to the south and southwest. And unfortunately, I wasn't there. I wish I had been, but of course, this was pretty. Obviously, people were very excited about this. I heard about it. I was writing for my little town newspaper that came out once a month, and I really innocently started out just by interviewing folks. And I figured, hey, this was a newsworthy event. Might poke a little fun at some of the, the retired hippies that lived there, and maybe there was some acid flashbacks going on. I was going to come up with some sort of tongue-in-cheek kind of yuck, kind of whistle the Twilight Zone theme sort of approach to it. And very quickly, by researching the actual events that had occurred in the valley back all the way to the 20s, even to the 1700s, I found, I very quickly realized that this was not a joking matter. This subject deserved, some serious journalistic attention. And within 2 weeks of researching, I realized I had uncovered a treasure trove of incredible documented reports, Native American legends, incredible aberrant social behavior. I sort of discovered or rediscovered America's first serial killers. I mean, the list of things that I was able to discover in those first 2 weeks is still to this day is flabbergasting. And when I released my article, it went viral pre-internet. It was picked up by the wire services. Of course, Lou Farish and the UFO News Clipping Service picked it up. And it just went viral, and I was inundated with requests for more information. Investigators and researchers from all around the world contacted me. People were calling me up, asking me for tours. I mean, it was crazy. And go figure, within 2 months, I was on national TV. And I figured the universe was telling me maybe this is something that I should kind of, look into. Maybe my closet interest in the subject warranted the kind of attention and, amount of time and effort and energy that it took to really do a thorough investigation, field investigation and research program with the San Luis Valley as my petri dish. And 10 years after that, I was pretty burnt out. It gets kind of weird when strangers are following you around from job site to job site. You think you're being tracked by the men in black, and it turns out to be someone that wants to talk to you, but they were too afraid to approach you. And I had van loads of Japanese tourists who were jumping out and taking pictures of my house, and it just got really weird. And I decided that that in combination with the 1,000-year drought in the area, that I just needed to to create some distance between myself and the San Luis Valley. And so I did move away. Of course, I still do have a network of sky watchers. I'm planning on, I'm in the, final stages of putting together a hard scientific surveillance net around the valley with high-definition cameras, magnetometers, gravitometers. And so I do still have quite a interest in the area. But after 10 years, I was burnt out. I was becoming the story. The events were taking sort of a backseat in people's minds, and I felt I just needed to leave.
When you are the go-to guy, right? You're now, and it happened after just a couple of months. Everybody wanted your opinion. You're the expert. That's a lot of weight on your shoulders too, as well. And then after 10 years, were you able to categorize what was what? What was them? What was us? What was natural? What was maybe Native American spirits? It could have been a combination of a bunch of different things. What were your end results, and how did you end up categorizing?
Well, the first thing that I did was I put blinders on, Jimmy. I went ahead and just took the actual Petri dish of the world's largest alpine valley.
Right.
The San Luis Valley is a very magical place. It sits on the backbone of North America. It, could arguably be called the most anomalous area in North America. You have a higher chance of witnessing an unusual event there by a factor of 4 or 5.
Sure.
I think that the per capita, I think a 10,000 population, 274 people, or there's 274 events out of a 10,000 population. The next nearest, I think, is North Dakota with around 60. So it is very, very active. It's radar invisible below 18,000 feet. You have to understand the valley, it's about 140 miles in length geographically, and about 60 miles, 70 miles at its widest point. And it's like a giant football that's totally surrounded by mountains. It's a perfect Petri dish.
I know, totally. I wanted to jump in for the audience and just make this comment. I've seen photographs that you published of the valley, and when you look, there's nothing there. I mean, it's about it could be as remote. When you say 10,000 people live there, I don't see it because seriously, it is wide open.
One person for every 7 square miles.
Yeah, exactly. So you're not going to really bump into anybody when you're out there.
Well, everybody obviously is clustered into little towns. I was 60 miles from the nearest stoplight,
Right.
supermarket, movie theater.
Right.
I could see Alamosa, the next, the nearest large town. I could see it, because I was up off the valley floor. But, you have to go all the way out to the center of the valley and then turn and go all the way south. The road going south, you could fall asleep for 10 minutes, wake up, and still be on the road. It's so straight. The problem with these types of remote areas. For instance, broadcast television didn't arrive there till the 80s. This is a very isolated community of towns. And in the southern half of the valley, you have some of the earliest vestiges of, colonial Spain. The conquistadores, when they came their first incursions into North America, coming up the Rio Grande. The Rio Grande River comes up from New Mexico to the center of the San Luis Valley, then makes a turn to the west and goes up to the headwaters around Creede. Some of the earliest incursions into North America by Europeans were up to the Taos Pueblo. The town of Taos, New Mexico, and the Pueblo is at the very extreme southern tip of the geologic valley. And you have offshoots. You can meet, blonde-haired, blue-eyed, or red-haired, blue-eyed Hispanics who speak Spanglish, this kind of bastardized version of Spanish and English. And there's the Los Hermanos de Penitentes, are the most fundamentalist of all Christians. They have enclaves where they practice a very fundamentalist form of Christianity where they, on Good Friday, they'll march across the desert barefoot over cactus fields. They'll flagellate themselves. Back in the older days, they would crucify one of the penitent brothers who felt worthy. This is a very unusual place culturally.
Wow.
And when I set out early in '93, when I first started my investigative work and research, I wanted to look not only at the unusual events that occurred there, the UFO sightings, the cattle mutilations, the crypto creature sightings, flying humanoids, a whole list of very bizarre things. But I also wanted to look at the potential natural phenomena. I wanted to look at aberrant social behavior. I wanted to look at weird concurrent weather. A whole list of things that tend to ebb and flow together, as I found. So in answer to your question, I did find some interesting patterns that seem to ebb and flow through my research. And I devised a database, which I'm very proud of, that has 10 points of data. You listen to your show, Jimmy, you listen to Coast, and there's all these people getting on here saying, I went to, the planet in the rings of Saturn, or, I met this guy that's been to the Pleiades and all this. Well, this stuff sounds great. It's wonderful, it's entertaining, but, show me some evidence.
Right.
Well, I have evidence. I've got a database that has hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of documented reports that have date, time, witness name, length of the event, location, whether the media was involved, whether a report was filed, whether there's any sort of physical evidence or visual documentation. And this is the way I think ufology began I think early in the 50s, there were more hard scientists that were interested, or people operating from a hard scientific paradigm. Now, I think there's a lot of armchair entertainment going on. People are more apt to get their education from TV, from radio. They don't read the books. They don't visit and absorb the classics. Allen Hynek, Jacques Vallée, John Keel. You could just go down the list of authors and researchers and investigators that have been around for the last 60 years. Most people who are getting involved in this field, the younger folks, they really don't have a grounding in the actual nuts and bolts aspect, the evidence, the data, the documentation that it really takes to convince me and other investigators and researchers like me that there is something to a particular claim. There's too many people out there that are spouting off all this wonderful sci-fi sounding stuff, and they don't have one shred of evidence to back it up. And they have millions of hits on their websites. They have hundreds of thousands of subscribers. And who are these people out there that are believing all this stuff? To me, it still boggles my mind that people take much of what passes as real research and documentation as taking it as it just blows my mind that all this is taken at face value. There are some people like me that are really in the trenches. They're not out there promoting themselves. They're not creating cults of personality and quasi-religious movements. They're actually out there doing the work. They're logging 300,000 miles in their truck in 6 years like I did.
Right.
Creating networks within law enforcement, science, the scientific community, if possible, academia. This is the way that this work should be done, and I'll be the first one to champion any sort of hard data research.
Well, let me jump in. Have you been convinced with your own data? I'm going to ask about your own sightings here in a second, but with the data that you've collected, what do you think is going on?
I think it is so multifarious and so difficult to pin down. It's like trying to capture mercury or pin Jello to the wall. I think there's multiple causal elements that are involved. I don't think there's a one-size-fits-all, it's all ETs, or it's all crypto-terrestrials, or it's all angels, or it's all demons. I think that there is a multifarious agenda or blend of agendas at work and play here. I think the government is involved up to their eye teeth. I think a sizable percentage of aerial phenomenon that's unusual and unexplained is probably our tax dollars at work and play. I think the government has been immersed into flying exotic technology around and engaging the reaction by the public. Do people report these things as UFOs? Do they make reports of the sheriff? Do the sheriff reports get picked up by the local media? Do the regional media outlets pick up the local reports? Do national media outlets pick up regional media reports? This is a very complex equation. I really have a sense that we're dealing with multiple players with multiple agendas, and we have a lot of people that are misidentifying natural phenomena. I had an outward bound instructor for other outward bound instructors. In other words, he trained outward bound instructors. He called me up one night along with 3 or 4 other people and reported Arcturus setting. And he was convinced that this was some sort of alien ship that was beaming him and communicating with him. And I was like, Tony, man, come on, listen to yourself. People really need to be educated. They need to be up to speed. If they're going to be involved in this type of work out there in the field, they really need to have some sort of training, some sort of education. I'm looking on the internet, and 9 out of 10 things that I see on the internet are so obvious to be unexplained natural phenomena, birds, in terms of UFO sightings, birds.
CGI.
Well, yeah. I wasn't beginning to start it. Most of it is all hoaxes. And, the more people get involved in trying to one-up each other in the hoax department, the better the quality of hoaxing is. But it's all grounded in a 1950s style view of what this phenomena is. If you ever see a photograph of a UFO traveling or a video of a UFO traveling edge on, it's bogus. UFOs don't travel edge on. The saucers don't travel with the rim pointing in the direction of travel. They usually travel with the dome or the bottom in the direction of travel, almost 9 times out of 10, for instance.
I was going to say, give me a for instance.
Yeah.
Well done.
There's a bunch of rules of thumb that you can use to immediately identify hoaxed video and photographs. There's a ghosting phenomenon that's probably akin to some sort of time compression capacity that these craft have, or the pilots of the craft have. For instance, there's ghost imaging in many of the genuine photographs. To me, it's a lot of people just playing one-upmanship, seeing how far they can stretch the envelope before someone comes out and points out, whatever elements are there to prove, to disprove it being real and prove that it's a hoax. So it's getting more and more complicated. The water is getting more and more turgid and muddy. Unfortunately, we don't have the kind of training programs that train people how to properly be aware of certain elements that are there when it's a hoaxed piece of footage or video or a photograph, and the entertainment complex is really to blame in a lot of this. There's so much sensationalism. There's so much hyperbole. There's so much breathless BS. I mean, let's call it what it is. If you're going to learn about these subjects by watching TV, you're not going to have a very good education.
Right. Well, you started to mention about a saucer-shaped traveling with a dome forward, and you were going to give me an example of that.
Well, I could, there's a number of them that I could point to. Ray Stanford's photographs and video, I think, are a case in point. Ray Stanford is one of our last remaining researchers and investigators from the 50s. He's high on my list as being one of the most important figures in the field and one of the most knowledgeable.
Right.
He has a ton of examples of that sort of configuration. Again, I think the Billy Meyer beam ships and the Adamski photographs have had this huge impact on people's, the meme of what a UFO looks like. I think those two have influenced what is considered to be an accepted view of what a UFO actually looks like when it's photographed. And
do you remember?
You remember based on hoaxing.
Yes. Do you remember the TV show The Invaders?
Sure.
Okay, that UFO, that craft, was based on the known stuff at the time, some famous hoaxed things. And then you go and you put that into a national TV show, which, by the way, was a great TV show. Still watch it. Love that show.
Oh, yeah. No, that was very good time.
But they got the 3 domed, balls underneath the craft and the shape of it.
It's all based on the Adamski shot.
Right.
If you look carefully at the original Adamski photograph, where the thing is sort of hovering with the bottom facing the camera, sort of.
Yeah.
If you look really carefully, you can see the glue leaking out from where he glued the ping pong balls up, the 3 ping pong balls up underneath. No, I'm serious.
Yes.
Ray actually got Adamski to show him and his twin brother, Rex, how he hoaxed many of his photographs. And the famous one with the mothership that has the glowing mothership with the objects around it, the very famous one, silhouetted, he actually had a bucket of radium paint that he obtained from a friend of his that had some family member, I think, in some scientific lab, and this highly radioactive paint was used to make the objects glow. And did Adamski die of cancer? I think he may have.
Yeah, right. Well, I'm totally with you on that. But I wanted to ask you, and we can go back and we can talk about Adamski all night. I have no issues with that. But you know what? What I wanted to say, Chris, this is the truth. Years ago, 30 years ago, I'm at a friend of mine's brother's house, and it's a cookout down in southern Irvine, if you know that Costa Mesa area of California.
UFO Symposium is going to be this year.
Exactly. So I'm down there, and and he says, go into my office. I need something, and so I walk into his office, and on his desk was one of the famous Billy Meyer coffee table books. You know, this big oversized thing, and
right, the Beam Ship, sure.
right, and
Stevens, Britton Lee Elders.
Yes, and I stop and I look at the cover, and I'm like, holy crap. You know, and I pick it up, and I'm looking at these pictures, and I thought this is, you know, too good to be true, which of course it was. But and in a weird sort of way, those hoaxed pictures of Billy Meyer and Adamski are what got me into it. You know, in a weird...
Isn't it funny how it works? I mean, these are iconic images.
Yeah, totally. And, you know, we all wanted them to be real. You know, the Adamski stuff I always had a hard time with. The big beam ship or the mothership, you know, it just never quite sat right with me.
Well, the wedding cake was so...
Oh, well, that's a whole... That's a whole nother...
Yeah, just some basic rules of thumb. These objects have some sort of magnetic or some exotic... emitters that are around the rim, and these emitters travel around the rim fairly quickly. And one of the things that Ray Stanford pointed out to me is these objects are polygonal, or octagonal oftentimes. They're not really round. It's only because the emitters are firing off in a sequence around the craft that it makes it appear to be a saucer shape. So a vast majority of these objects actually have, you know, multiple sides on them. They're not.
They're faceted.
Yeah, they're faceted, exactly. And like I said, they'll hover with the edge parallel to the ground. But when they move, they tend to move with the, you know, in the dome in the direction of travel.
They sort of tumble.
It's something that I always look for, you know, and I probably shouldn't be, you know, giving away all my secrets for analysis. But that's one of the things that I look for in video footage and you know, still photographs. As I look for the telltale signs. And because these objects are obviously highly electrified, there's some sort of magnetic, sort of a plasma ionization of air. Generally, if a sighting is near the coast or anywhere where there's increased levels of humidity, you will have this kind of ionized fog around the objects as well. And this is something that I look for as a telltale sign. A stark craft hovering there with no shimmering around the edge, with no plasma emitters creating some sort of ionization around the object. If it looks too good to be true, chances are it is too good to be true.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing that I have wondered, and I did this post... Oh man, I did this post maybe 20 years ago, and on one of the big websites out there. I'm not going to go there now. I don't need trouble. But so I did this post in this forum, and I merely stated, look, we have all of these everybody's got a camera these days. And this is before cell phone cameras, but you know, I'm referring to digital cameras, and you know, just everybody's got cameras. And where is the definitive? Where is it? I don't care if it's fuzzy or not, but give me a shot of a portal, of rivets, of, you know, I just need something definitive. Where is it? And that's one of the things that I have issues with. If we have so many sightings every single day, as far as I know, it would be like the 405 freeway at rush hour leading to planet Earth from somewhere. And these flying saucers would be bumper to bumper. And what I'm thinking now these days, yes, are they here, or are they us, or are they them? Or there's a combination of both. But my point being, you can't probably grab a really, 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 really good picture. And if you do grab a really, really, really good picture, it's probably not real. Am I making sense?
Well, you are, because we haven't really set ourselves up to be in a position to actually acquire the kind of optical data which ideally would be hand in hand with magnetic, possibly gravity type data. And that's why the San Luis Valley camera project, I think, is pretty groundbreaking. What we're doing is we're setting up a triangulated array of high-definition video cameras that are synced together.
Let's stop right there. I'm against a hard break, Chris. Just
no problem.
Hard break. This is Fade to Black, the spoke radio for the masses tonight. Christopher O'Brien. Right now, we're discussing the San Luis Valley in south central Colorado. I'll be back right after this.
Way out here, we listen to Jimmy Church.
You're listening to Fade to Black.
Always on the edge of the hottest alternative talk. Jimmy Church with Fade to Black. KGRAradio.com.
Hey everybody, what's up? Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and check this out. The 2015 MUFON Symposium will be held this September 24th through the 27th in beautiful downtown Irvine, California. Expanding ufology, opening new doors in academia, industry, and media. Former Defense Minister of Canada Paul Hellyer will be there in person. Former CNN news anchor Cheryl Jones, TV news journalist Jaime Maussan, and MUFON's chief photo analyst Mark D'Antonio. They're just a few of the growing list of names for the 2015 event. It's September 24th through the 27th at the beautiful Hotel Irvine. Get your tickets today at MUFONSymposium.com. That's MUFONSymposium.com. Go Beckley Tepe.
¿Qué tal, mis amigos? Yo soy Mario Carson, el tiburón, y los invito para que escuchen a mi buen amigo Jimmy Church Radio. ¡Claro que sí!
Did you ever turn to your radio for your favorite talk show to find that it's been preempted for this?
In the air to deep right center. Back goes Lewis to the wall, and it's out of here!
Or this?
And I'm ashamed of you, Hillary, for voting for it.
Do you have a favorite talk radio program that's not available in your city? Just go to TalkStreamLive.com for links to the best streaming talk radio shows. At TalkStream Live, you will find live talk shows 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. All your favorites are here. With such a large selection, you will also discover some new favorites. On the go and still want to listen? With the mobile smartphone, simply type TalkStream Live on your internet browser. Now you can take internet radio with you. You will also find hundreds of music, news, and sports streams. Best of all, the TalkStream Live directory is free and there's never a login required. Remember TalkStreamLive.com, the fastest route between you and your favorite talk radio show.
You are listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Oi, oi, I'm Reese Evans. You're listening to Jimmy Church. This is Revolution. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution is on radio. Ciao.
Welcome back. This is Fade to Black. Tonight, Christopher O'Brien is with us. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tomorrow night, open lines. It's Fader night all night long. All right. Hey, Christopher, you're a musician.
Yeah.
You like that bumper music?
I do. I was kind of wondering, who is that?
It's me.
Really?
Yeah. Impressed?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not me. Come on.
I didn't think so. But if you said it was, I'd believe you, Jimmy.
Oh, man. I did produce it, though, but that's a cat named Doug Aldrich. And
great guitarist.
Yeah, he's amazing. And, the funny thing is about Doug and I, there's a little town out here in the valley. It's called Sherman Oaks, if you know Southern California. And
sure.
right where we lived, it was like this rock and roll mecca. Everybody lived right there. Ronnie James Dio, Rudy Sarzo, myself, Doug Aldrich, Richie Kotzen was down the street. It's just like I could go on and on and on and on and on with who lived in that neighborhood. And it was just such an honor that I could, go over to Doug's house. He'd come over to mine, or go over. I had a studio with Rudy Sarzo, and we would just sit there and write and produce and hang out. And those tracks that you're listening to were literally cut in a bedroom in Sherman Oaks.
Cool, man.
And there you go. You're a musician. I thought I'd share that with you. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's go back to the Central Valley there. When you heard about that, that first sighting, and I remember that article, by the way. I do remember reading that. And what happened when you had your first sighting? What did you see there?
Well, my first sighting actually goes back a number of years to 1979, where I had a multiple witness sighting of 6 objects, actually, that actually performed for us. And there was some sort of rudimentary interaction going on, which was really exciting at the time. We had just gone to a Gentle Giant concert, and half of us were pretty tripped out, shall we say.
That's okay, right.
But the other half weren't. So we had a perfect, I think, a perfect cross-section of folks to kind of chime in later on what they had seen. And basically all of our recollections matched. And it was a Gentle Giant concert up in New Paltz, New York. I'll never forget this. It was the third Friday in September 1979. And, of course, New Paltz was made famous in the late 80s by Whitley Strieber. That's where his cabin was located, where he had many very, potentially important events, if they're real, which I think chances are something did happen to Whitley up there based on my particular experience. I can definitely see that that's a magical area up there, especially around the Schwangunk Cliffs and Minnewaska and other places there. And we were hanging out in the football field, just sort of partying after the show. We were getting ready to go to a party, and I was lying on my back, and I noticed that there were a couple of stars up there that were kind of moving. And as soon as I said something to everybody, they froze. And everybody's looking up there for a while, and they said, "Oh man, come on, your eyes are playing tricks on you." And everybody would go back to talking to each other, and then more lights, more stars started moving. And finally, my brother happened to look up, and he saw the same thing. He said, "Hey, everybody, he's right. These things are moving." And we actually traced out a triangle, a square, a circle with our bodies on the field, and these objects actually mimicked the shapes that we were making on the ground. They were mimicking them in the air. And at one point, somebody says, "Well, what are you so far away for? Come closer." And all of a sudden, the lights appeared. Either they got brighter or they appeared to rush down towards the ground at us. And then somebody said, "Oh, not that close," and they stopped. So, to this day, I'm not sure what to make of that. It was a very pivotal moment in my life because I for the first time, I had seen unexplained lights that I really couldn't put into some sort of box as with a conventional explanation. And it wasn't for many years later that I actually had some real riveting sightings. And in the San Luis Valley, once you get a network of sky watchers established and people are have a phone tree going, there were times where I was literally able to run out and people said, "Hey, this thing just passed over us," and they were 60, 70 miles south of me, and they said they're heading north. Quick, run outside. I'd go up on my roof, and sure enough, I'd have sightings. I was able to get a few photographs, some good video, some of which has never been aired, by the way, including one event that had 13 objects in it with night vision. And, that kind of thing, once you really, instead of becoming Thoth, the documenter, the chronicler of these types of events, and you actually become a witness to some of these events, actually many of these events, as it turns out, it does color your perceptions, and it does, I think, it really motivates you. It's really exhilarating. It's really exciting. Over the years, I've become, I think, very proficient at being able to differentiate between something that appears to be unusual, unconventional, high strange even, versus something that could be, explained away. And because of the proximity to the La Vida low-level flight area, military operations area, which was a huge 50 square mile chunk of Colorado to my east on the other side of the Sangre de Cristo Mountains from me, because there were obviously a lot of flight activity in that area. I have a sense that the military from time to time would trot out some more unconventional, more exotic aerial platforms to gauge the response in the community. And there were a number of events that I am almost 100% convinced were actually secret military flights. Even conventional planes were lit up like Christmas trees and flown around. I think my obvious assumption would be to gauge the reaction in the public to see if some of the few residents there that were there would see these things, report them to the sheriff. And again, the sheriff, were those reports picked up by the media, and how far into the, up the media chain of dissemination would these sightings, go into the culture. And so, I started developing some pretty, I think fairly user-friendly sort of rules of thumb and axioms for investigation. And my first book, The Mysterious Valley, has 13 suggested rules of investigation for aspiring investigators. And I'm really proud of those suggested rules, and I've really tried to stick to them as close and as like glue as possible over the years, because I really think it's important for people to be grounded and not get carried away with the lust of expectation or result, and this whole thing, I think a lot of us have, most of us have, where we want to have an unusual experience. We want to be special. We want to be one of the chosen few that have, some sort of sighting, whether it's, a mysterious light in the sky that dances around, or whether it's a craft that lands outside, our ranch house in the back 40. And in the San Luis Valley, I found as the years started to click by that, people actually became almost numb to a lot of the activity, and it actually became part of their normal everyday life.
Was it daily?
Well, yeah, at times. I had as many as 17 calls in one day reporting what ended up, I think, 4 or 5 different events.
Wow.
But 17 phone calls in one day is my record. I was in the supermarket or Walmart or something at one point in Alamosa doing some shopping, and I saw a rancher who, I had met through through the network of sources, and he saw me, and he comes strolling over with this cart, and he goes, "Hey, Chris, man, I'm glad I ran into you. You wouldn't believe what I saw a couple of weeks ago. Man, I had this big old thing. I don't know what the hell it was. It landed, my back 40 out there, and it was lit up like a Christmas tree. And, I went out there, and there seemed to be grass swirled down, and my animals were all freaking out. I didn't lose any cattle, and I said, well, why the hell didn't you call me? And he said, well, I know you're really busy running around doing all this stuff. I didn't want to bother you. And I'm like, what? and so, people are, say, oh, well, I'll run into him sometime and I'll mention it to him. It became almost commonplace, ebbing and flowing over the years. Back in the 60s, there were hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of sightings from the spring of 67 all the way through the fall of 70. Those 3.5, 4 years were just hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of sightings were going on. And then back in the 70s, 75, 76, 77, 78, again, dozens and dozens of cattle mutilations, tons of UFO type activity, mysterious military activity. One of the things that I do have in my database is I list out in italics whenever there is reported military activity that appears unusual. Convoys in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Yep.
Flatbed trucks with these weird Buck Rogers space guns all lined up on the flatbed. They happen to, pull the tarp off.
Yeah, that's a good indication of something.
Some pretty bizarre stuff, and I'm really proud of my database. It's 70,000 words, I think. Quite a number of pages. I tried to get St. Martin's Press to publish it, but they laughed at me. They said, your book isn't even as long as this thing. And so, when you're in a place like that, and stuff is happening, you have a major flap of activity, it's really important to keep grounded, to keep people informed,
Well,
make sure.
you know, there was a point where, and I'm sorry I interrupted, but I have to. There's a point in time where you became, ungrounded or unglued. And what I mean by that is this. There was the first time that you were out there where you saw something and you said to yourself, holy crap, there's something going on here for real. What was that one event, that first event where you did come unglued and you were like, man, okay, all right, there's something going on. What happened on that day?
Well, funny that you should mention that or ask that. It happened actually before I got involved in all the investigation and writing about it and, doing all the research and stuff. And it was about the end of the first summer that I had moved to Colorado, which would have been in, mid to late August of 1989. And I was sitting on the porch. We were hanging out. We had just had dinner. The sun had just gone down, but it was still slight glow in the sky. It was just before twilight. And we had a uniform, overcast sky of thin clouds. And my house was sitting up from the valley floor, so I would look out on the valley. I could see, from that particular house, I could see about 200 miles from south to north, up the entire length of the valley practically. And I'm standing there with 4 or 5 people, and we saw this weird, it looked like a giant bottle rocket, is the only way I can describe it. I ended up calling them cheap fireworks. And this thing, it arced down one of the creeks. There's a number of creeks that go down into the valley, and each of those creeks has a ton of cottonwood trees and aspen trees, and then in between the creeks it's all meadow grass and scrub and sagebrush and chico and stuff, and so you don't have tall trees, you just have these fingers of trees going out, and this thing arced over at a lower elevation than we were. And it was really large. If you're talking about a cheap firework, it must have been, 4 or 5 feet long,
right.
6 feet maybe, and it was this like a giant bottle rocket flying parallel to the ground, and it was obviously under the cloud cover, and at the very end of it, it was lighting up the tops of the trees, and then it blinked out. Huh. And everybody's, 3 out of the 5 of us, I think, if I remember correctly, saw this. The other 2 were looking the other direction. They turned around. They were able to see the end of it. And I thought to myself, what the heck is that? I mean, that it was way too big to be some sort of firework or, unless it was, one of the Zambonis or whoever those people are on Long Island that do all the fireworks, and it was a dud that went sideways. Not. Obviously, that wasn't what it was. But I knew right then and there that there was something weird going on in the valley there. And then I kept my eyes open from that point on. And, of course, when you start asking some of the locals, who had been there a long time, what do you think about the UFOs and stuff, they'd look at you like you were crazy and kind of put their nose up at you. I guess you just moved here, right?
Exactly.
That's all ancient history, and then come, a few years later on, they'd be some of my best sources telling me, man, you wouldn't believe all the stuff I saw. So you have to kind of have a bedside manner. You have to, get into a local's kind of groove there and network properly. And, you have to know people on a day-to-day level. You have to be a local. I think, people like Linda Howe and some of these other investigators who run around into communities that they're not familiar with and try to splash the pool dry and go in and get all these interviews and stuff. People are not going to open up to someone like that. But they will open up if they know there's a local guy with a local phone number that they can call and confide in. And that was really important for me. Making inroads with all the county sheriffs in the county. My number was up right next to at the dispatcher's desk, and whenever they get a call for a cattle mutilation or a UFO report or some sort of crypto report or some sort of weird military helicopter report, they'd automatically call. The sheriff would tell them to also give them my number and tell them to call me. So it's creating the network of sources, a network that you can trust, a network that's up to speed, that is not prone to fantasy or delusion, people that are grounded in their observational skills and have some obviously some expertise at what they're looking at. That's really, really important. And I think all these hotspot areas that we have around at least North America and probably around the world, obviously, we need people that are well placed in each of these communities that are motivated enough to do the kind of work that I've done, that others have done. Ann Ruffle, I mean, come on, in Southern California, she probably has the largest database from a single geographic region of anyone.
Yeah, she's great.
And Ann was and in a lesser way, John Keel were real inspirations for me. And I was very lucky. I really must say this early on. I stand on the shoulders of giants. Within the first 3 or 4 months of my investigative and research process, I was able to be I was taken very carefully by Linda Howe, by David Perkins, Tom Adams, Dr. Lynn Weldon down at Adams State College, an astronomer, some ex-military folks. They took me under their wing and they gave me a crash course on how to properly be an investigator, researcher, and documentarian. Linda Howe gave me my interviewing skills. Tom Adams and David Perkins gave me my research skills pre-internet. And Dr. Lynn Weldon really helped me with my creative thinking, looking at the societal and attendant phenomenon, weird weather, how that may or may not relate to waves of activity. So I look at it from more of a holographic, sort of three-dimensional thing. I don't have blinders on. I'm not just interested in UFOs. I'm not just interested in Bigfoot. I'm not just interested in cattle mutilations. I'm interested in how all these things dovetail together and tend to weave and interweave waves of their apparent activity. When you have UFO sightings and cattle mutilations, chances are you're going to have advanced numbers of roadkill, a spike in unusual fires, strange weather that's kind of comes out of nowhere, aberrant social behavior. All these things tend to cluster together. And this is something that you don't hear anybody talking about.
Right.
Everybody's too concerned about, we went to planet Serpo. Or,
okay.
We have these aliens that are working with the Queen of England, who's a reptoid that sucks the blood of young children.
Well,
sure, that stuff is great, in terms of entertainment value. But when it comes down to real, honest, hard-boiled investigations and research, we need people that are creative, creative thinkers. We need people that are looking outside of the box, that are looking for patterns, that are looking to put together networks of sources and individuals who are well trained and up to speed to be trusted.
Chris, you didn't know the Queen of England, the Queen Mother, was a reptilian? Anyway,
David Icke and Carrie and
okay, slow down. Let's not go there. Nancy just tweeted. She says she's got family in the San Luis Valley. Can you recommend a campsite or a place to go sky watching?
Absolutely, Zapata Falls State Park.
There you go, Nancy. Say it again.
Zapata Falls State Park. It's about 1,500 feet above the valley, just south of the Great Sand Dunes. And you have a wonderful, wonderful view there looking out over the valley. But if you turn around and look east, there's a big swath of the Sangres there that was burnt in a fire about 30 years ago. And these weird kind of sprite lights, sometimes thousands of them, will appear up there and then come down. I've had people report them all around them, sitting in their hands, on top of their heads. You have to be in a real, I'm going to sound like Stephen Greer here, but you have to be in a very meditative space, and you have to be really silent and still internally in order for them to approach. But
well, when you say something like that, you witness something like that, that almost sounds interdimensional-ish or spiritual. What do you think it is?
Well, it's almost like like Tinkerbells.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's like elementals. There is a sacred a grotto there and a sacred waterfall that is up the trail about 1/8 of a mile from the parking lot. But if you just sit in the parking lot and you look out over the valley, it's a perfect vantage point to skywatch. And then always have somebody looking behind you at the mountainside where the burnout area is, and you can see these little white lights flickering up there. And if you're really quiet and you summon them, you ask them to come closer. during periods where we have a lot of activity going on, they seem to be more numerous and brighter. When there's not as much activity going on, they seem to be less numerous and less luminous.
So they're almost gregarious.
Yeah, they seem to ebb and flow, and you can almost tell how active the valley is by how bright they are and how many of them you see.
Wow.
Burl Lewis, the owner of Snippy the Horse, the owner of the first, publicized cattle mutilation, which was a horse, he described them at times as covering entire fields. And he said if he was back in Missouri, he would have thought that there was like a convention of lightning bugs or fireflies, which don't occur in the San Luis Valley. It's way too high in altitude. The valley is like at 7,000 feet, the valley floor, and then the mountains go up to 14,000 feet around it. It's a very magical area, just, in terms of its scenic beauty and its geology and, all the things that, you see in the travel magazines. I mean, it is really a magnificent place to visit. And Zapata Falls is my favorite place to skywatch.
Do you think, I think I already know your answer, but do you think that the Air Force and the military is following and is aware of the activity that is happening there? In other words, is there a flurry of helicopters? Do you ever see anything chasing something else? Are they aware?
Yeah, on a number of occasions, absolutely. And if they're not aware of it, they should be fired, and people that more qualified people should be put in there. Of course they're aware of it. In fact, I got a call one night from someone that was way up at the north end of the valley, and they said, hey, there's these two huge orange fireballs. They're right above the ground level. They're headed south down the center of the valley. Quick, run outside. And I ran up on my roof with my girlfriend, her daughter, and a friend of her daughter's, and we saw these two like small house-sized orange glowing objects just above the valley floor, hauling ass down the center of the valley. Once they got about 2/3 of the way down, I guess, one of them continued straight and the other one curved off and went off following the Rio Grande west towards South Fork. And I could have timed it on my watch. It takes about 8 or 9 minutes for jets to arrive from the Front Range, from like Buckley, Fort Carson possibly, some of this, mid Front Range to Southern Front Range airfields. And these two jets came over the Sangres on full military power with the big 30-foot flames coming out the back of the F-16s.
Right.
And they came over the valley, and they swooped down, and one of them went off in the direction that the first object had split off and gone west, and the other one hauled ass to the south. And they weren't going they hadn't broken the sound barrier. We didn't hear any sonic booms, but boy, they were right up there, probably 600 plus knots. They were really hauling butt. And that would be a classic example of that sort of event happens, immediate response by the military. There have been a number of times that I've seen helicopters and videotaped helicopters arriving after sightings. The cattle mutilation phenomenon especially features at least a dozen good reports of people going out finding animals after seeing low-flying helicopters around their fields. Heck, just this last summer and the summer before, we had some reports of fleets of helicopters and then 8 mutilations occurring that night in Huerfano County, up and over the mountains from the valley to the east. So yeah, this is it's almost predictable. I mean, invariably, if we have a bunch of sighting activities, landed craft, you'll invariably have reports of weird convoys of military vehicles. A number of times, one time I saw a parade of fish and wildlife trucks, pickup trucks. There were 12 or 13 of them. And I was counting them as they went by me. I was coming down off of Levita Pass, which is, east of the valley, going west into the valley. And these guys are leaving the valley, going to the east. And I'm counting all these fish and wildlife trucks going, who are these people? Where did they come from? And so, I had a friend who worked for the Fish and Wildlife. He was one of 2 guys in the valley. And I called him up and said, hey, I saw this convoy. Your guys leaving the valley. What'd you have going on there? He goes, what are you talking about? I said, there must have been 14, 15 trucks. He goes, we don't even have that many trucks in the entire western United States, is his attitude.
Right.
And we probably do. But he said in the valley alone, there's only 3, So where'd all these fish and wildlife trucks come from with accompanying these semis, unmarked semis that were bracketed between the trucks? And, if you look at my database and you start to pattern the activity versus weird convoys, weird flights of low-flying helicopters, jet fighters going the wrong way on the MTR, the military operation training route, which goes south to north, and these guys are flying, like going up a one-way street the wrong way. There have been quite a number of reports like that. We've had reports of fighter jets disappearing directly into mountains.
Well, that was my question. Do you why the valley with this activity? And I don't want to cause you to speculate too much here, but is there a base or something? Or why the valley? It sounds like, it's the O'Hare Airport of ET craft. Is there some type of base there?
Well, again, this gets into kind of a little bit of a kind of a touchy area. The only time I really experienced any problems was when I was looking into this very subject. It's not a matter of if there's one. There's probably several.
Right.
And I do have a tantalizing bit of shall we say, qualified rumors, qualified innuendo from people off the record that would suggest there's at least 3 facilities between Trinidad and Dulce.
Okay, before we go Dulce, I want to actually change gears because Dulce is going to be a big part of our conversation. So let's not quite go there yet. I want to talk. Because now we're at this point, I want to talk about stalking the herd, but also tied in with the book and with this general area is a whole long list of suspects. Okay, we can go Doty. We can start there. We can actually go before him. Everything that happened at Kirtland, Paul Benowitz, that entire thing. Of course, Linda Moulton Howe's now involved. HBO is involved. The entire situation got out of control, and it was a combination of real events. I mean, I do believe Paul Benowitz saw something. I saw a lot of things. But then you have the disinfo that was coming in from different government agencies, and it was all tied into this area. When you have Dulce there, you have Kirtland, you have the San Luis Valley, you have cattle mutilations, you've got ET craft, you've got black helicopter. I mean, it was just a crazy string of events that went on, fed by both true events and some true, honest disinfo, too, as well.
Yeah, and misinfo too. I think people, once the media gets involved, especially locally and regionally, once you have a series of events, then it's hard for the local papers and local media outlets not to cover the story because it's a news story. One event, maybe 2 events that could go under the bridge without anybody really jumping on it. But if you have 3, 4, 5 events occur, then the local media gets involved. And if you have an interest in the culture, like you did in the 70s, like you did in the 66, 67, 68 time period, for instance, if there is a heightened interest in the culture, then the regional news outlets from Denver, from Colorado Springs, from Albuquerque, they'll get involved and do stories. And if that activity continues, then you'll even have the national news on rare occasions getting involved. The O'Hare event, Stevensville, back in 2008, or whenever the Stevensville event happened, 2009. Or was it 2010? I forget. I didn't really pay attention. It was right around...
above
2007 or
2007. Then, of course, O'Hare, and you've got the Phoenix Lights, too, as well.
Right, of course, the Phoenix Lights. Yeah, I happened to be halfway between Phoenix and Tucson when that happened.
I was in Phoenix when it happened, and I didn't see it.
I was in watching the basketball, the NCAA. I think the Sweet 16 or the Final 8 or the Elite 8 or something, because Arizona was in it. I was working. I was down from Colorado. Anyway, it's wow. I think these things ebb and flow. I think you have waves of activity. You'll have periods of intense activity, and that'll peak, and then slowly, kind of curtail, and then you'll have a down period, and then it'll peak again. With the cattle deaths, you had an amazing amount of activity from 74 through 79. Those 5 years, at least 10,000 official reports were filed, but many of these reports, in my estimation, could have been prompted by ranchers freaking out, knowing that these real cases were occurring, and having a dead animal on their property and going out and all of a sudden what he used to think was just, scavenger action now, because maybe it's a little cleaner looking than normal, he'll think, oh my God, I've been struck by the mutilators, and so I think there is a little bit of a snowballing effect that seems to be in concert with the amount of media coverage. So a sizable percentage, and I'm not willing to put a figure on it at this point, but I would say there is a sizable percentage of perceived cattle mutilation or unusual livestock deaths that are actually misidentified scavenger action, the result of insects, birds, predator scavengers. Lightning strikes can trick you. I've seen magpies, for instance, and ravens carve a perfect circle out of the rear end of a cow. You could take a compass and I mean, it was perfectly circular. Michael Corbin actually turned me on to that particular case. So I do think that there is a lot of misconceptions out there about these cases. I think everyone who comes up with a one-size-fits-all answer is absolutely dead wrong. I don't think Linda's right and ETs are doing all this. I don't think the skeptics are right and that it's all misidentified scavenger action. I don't think, this investigator who thinks it's all government is right. We have cases, the earliest cases that I can find documented are from 1606 around London during the reign of James I, where hundreds and hundreds of sheep were found mutilated. Right when Shakespeare was writing Macbeth and Guy Fawkes was doing the gunpowder plot, all within that same few-week period, you had hundreds of sheep being mutilated in and around the shires of London. And there's a reference to this in the official court records of James I. So, that's obviously not government flying helicopters back then.
Right.
There is something, I think, at the core of this. I think the rarest cases and the least likely cases to be reported are super high strange. They're unexplainable by me or by science, and they're the least likely cases to be reported by ranchers because they freak them out. But I think a sizable percentage of the 70s, 80s, 90s, and cases up till the present day are human perpetrated. I think that they're done with sharp cutting implements like scalpels.
Well, who would do something like that, which, in all honesty, if it is human, then you're looking at, some type of cult or ritual activity, which I find equally is disturbing, to be honest with you.
I think there is an element of ritual in there. I think there are some cases that are some sort of response, a ritualized response. But I think the main MO, or the main reason, rather, that these cases are being perpetrated is some sort of environmental monitoring. They're either monitoring or monitoring the food chain, and or they're monitoring specific geographic locations. And people often ask me, well, Chris, if it's the government, why don't they get their own cows and put them on their own property, or rent property, or rent or buy cows and do it out of sight, out of mind? They do.
Adam Go Rightly
does this. The NIH, the CDC, they mutilate animals every day of one kind to another. And we have the EPA, for instance, getting busted by a whistleblower back in the 90s. They were monitoring the levels of heavy metals in cattle tissues. Right. And downstream from a Superfund site just west of the valley. and they detected like 600 times the amount of copper and other heavy metals in the animals' tissues. And when the scientist who was raising the animals and did the tests and stuff, when he found out these results, he wanted to warn, the ranching community and say, hey, don't eat these animals. They're really, they're toxic. And he was forbidden to do this by the EPA, who fired him when he protested. So he became a whistleblower. He sued the EPA, and he exposed this whole story to the Westman magazine in Denver. So that's a classic example of the government actually mutilating animals for environmental monitoring purposes. People say, well, Chris, why don't they take the animals and do it on their own? Like at Dugway or some of their own military bases or something. And the reason being, I think, is because it's not so much the animal, it's where it's located in the environment. If that animal is downwind and downstream of where we mine uranium, have nuclear power plants, have weapons enrichment facilities, have nuclear, any sort of weapons enrichment type activity. If you go downwind and downstream, that's where the areas of highest incidence of unexplained animal deaths occur with the mutilation feature. So, it's a very complex subject. That's why my book is 600 pages. It would have been 900 if I'd fit all my research in there. I had to cut out about a quarter of the book, which is going to be in a follow-up book that's going to analyze the first book. But Stalking the Herd is the only standalone book that looks at a single, it's the one and only book that looks objectively at a single mysterious, possibly paranormal phenomena. I mean, there's tons of books about ghosts. There's tons of books about UFOs. There's tons of books about Bigfoot. But if you go looking for a good single book on the cattle mutilation phenomenon, there was none until my book came out, and I'm very proud of that.
What about Michael Corbin's death? I wanted to ask you about that. And Adam Go Rightly just posted. What did you think the mysteries surrounding his death?
Well, Michael wasn't a healthy guy. He did, I got to know him very well. He didn't, he didn't take care of himself. He was a party guy, really sweet guy, nice guy, really super up to speed. Was one of my my kind of mentors in terms of when I started my own radio show in the 90s in Colorado. He was very instrumental in helping me. He just, he did not have a healthy lifestyle, and I think it caught up with him early. I don't see anything, at least on the surface, that appeared any suspicious with his death. I know there are some people that think, he was getting involved in some pretty, according to, friends of his, he was kicking around in some dark, musty closets that could have been potentially, how would I put this? It could have ruffled some feathers, some of the wrong feathers. But at least as far as my limited knowledge goes about him, what he was up to, and his what was going on with him around the time of his death, I didn't see anything nefarious. I just felt that it was, a guy that was burning the candle at both ends and was, a real party guy and just didn't take care of himself.
With and thank you for that. Ed, Adam Go Rightly. So there you go. Thank you, Adam, for the question. Really quick, are you on Twitter?
Nope.
Oh, okay. That's why we couldn't find you.
I didn't think anybody would care about what I had to say.
Well, we bust through 2,000-3,000 tweets a night during the show, and everybody was asking where you were. So there you go.
Maybe, I do have a Twitter account, and I think I maybe posted about 4 times about 5-6 years ago when it first started. And I'm just so busy with all, I have 5 different jobs, and, I'm just a really super busy guy. And, I don't know. To me, Twitters are like selfies and selfie sticks, and
yeah. Well, Christopher, I don't know if you know this though, but Twitter might get big. I think it's the next big thing. It's a joke. You're supposed to laugh at that point. You're supposed to insert courtesy laugh.
Well, it is huge already. I mean, it has been huge for the last 3 or 4 years. I mean,
yeah.
It's just I don't know. I'm just one of these old school guys, I have a hard enough time just keeping up with my emails,
Yeah, tell me about it. What I wanted to ask, one thing that I do find really strange, and I can't wrap my head around this, with all of the cattle mutilations that have happened. Okay, we remove the natural side of it, okay? Thinning the herd. I get that. Animals need to eat. They're going to go and do what they have to do. So
and
remove
2% of livestock die in a given year.
Right. So remove all of that. With the ones that you can't explain, how come nobody's been caught? Nothing's been photographed. Nobody's been caught red-handed. There hasn't been a tie-in with, say, E.T. Nobody's been caught. Nobody's been busted. How do we explain that away?
Well, it's not to be, totally accurate. Somebody was caught in 1902, was convicted and sentenced and put in jail for mutilating livestock. Of course, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, of all people, got him a new trial and got him vindicated. That's not really a totally accurate statement. I have had law enforcement go on the record and state that a particular rancher, a very wealthy rancher, was directly involved in the staging of helicopter flights that went out and mutilated, at one point up to 49 head of cattle in 2 weeks in one little town.
But what about the guy with like a laser tool or a Dremel? He's out there filing teeth down, removing skin, bottles of blood. That's what I'm referring to. Why haven't we? There
have been cases where the organs that have been removed were found in a plastic bag hanging in off a tree limb over the animal.
I do remember that.
With ritual occult sign around them. Linda Howe, of course, doesn't like to hear about the hundreds and hundreds of helicopter sightings. In her estimation, these helicopters are UFOs pretending to be helicopters. And, of course, my obvious answer would be Occam's razor with that. If it looks like a helicopter, sounds like a helicopter, and if a bunch of deputies fire on it and it starts smoking and makes weird coughing sounds, that kind of sounds like a helicopter.
Sure.
And that's a very good question. You would think that one of these helicopters would break down.
Right.
That somebody would mess up and somebody's ranch dogs would bark and alert a rancher who'd go out and shoot somebody. There have been some real near misses. We've had a number of cases over the years, and I do feature these all scattered throughout the book, where people have been apprehended, but then talked their way out of being taken in. For instance, there was a case in Montana like that. There have been cases where, for instance, people have been seen, in helicopters hovering over a field where an animal is found mutilated, and the rancher fires his weapon at the helicopter, and the guys on the helicopter fire back. And in one case, there's a number of cases like that. And then there's one case, if I remember, it was either Missouri or Iowa, where a team on the ground started firing at the rancher. People that he didn't even know were there all of a sudden started firing on him. It got really crazy in the 70s, and there are quite a number of reports of strange vehicles, of semi-trucks seen. There was a case in the 90s where I think 1,200 head of livestock were stolen from a feedlot with no trace. In 1971, there were dozens and dozens and dozens, hundreds of animals that were stolen by with helicopters buzzing all around. It got so bad that vigilante groups were formed, and power company helicopters were forced to fly at a higher altitude. National Guard helicopters were forced to fly at a higher altitude because they were taking fire from vigilante groups of ranchers. It's very complicated. I think a lot of these areas where these animals are targeted, for the most part, are out of sight of the ranch house. They tend to be further away, I think, in general, from areas that are easily detected. That's not to say we haven't had cases where an animal has been found literally on the doorstep. I mean, has been dropped out of the field on the doorstep of a rancher. We've had cattle that have been found, 2 miles away from where they were supposed to be, with several fence lines between them and where they were, prior location, the day before. It's very complicated. I think these are very, very slick operators. I think we have a modus operandi that's finely tuned. I think we do have examples of almost spec ops quality, individuals involved, which are quasi-military.
When you suggest that, a cow, 2 miles away from the herd where it's supposed to be, are there footsteps? Are there hoof prints in the ground, or is this thing picked up and placed?
They take these animals, they remove them from the location, they take them somewhere, they do their experimenting, their disfiguring, and then they drop them back in a different part of the field. That's why you're never going to find any prints or anything, because the animals aren't dropped back. I don't think the actual event takes place where the animal is found. I think it takes place at a different place, and the animal is returned there. How they're doing this, it's a big mystery. This is the greatest unsolved serial crime spree of the last,
totally. And, Chris,
and it's totally ignored by the rank and file out there. And what really bothers me is we have a mystery with paranormal, overtones that has thousands of pounds of physical evidence.
Right.
We have barbiturates, nicotine, ketamine, anticoagulants, coagulants. Animals have been found with no copper. They've been found with too much copper. Animals have been found with potassium cyanide in the ocular fluid. That's
radioactive.
Animals that have show signs of radioactivity. Had one case where the spinal cord was removed from the animal with no break in the spine. I had a case where there was no brain and there was no break in the cranium, and the brain case was dry, and there was no organic matter except for the skull in that brain case, and the animal was alive the night before. It was found in 5 inches of pristine, freshly fallen snow, and there was only 1 drop of blood found. It was on the rear left hoof of the animal. It wouldn't rot. It was in a heated garage for quite a number of days, and it wouldn't rot. There's photographs on my website of that particular case. This is a real mystery, and I don't care, what the debunkers say. We have a body of evidence. We have, veterinary pathology reports, state crime lab reports that indicate that these animals, at least the few that are gotten to in time, to haul them off or have, on-site necropsies done by qualified professionals. I'm an amateur. I'm a guy that's really up to speed. I've been, I kind of had an unofficial training, cursory training in, crime scene investigation techniques and, how to gather samples, plant and soil samples, for instance. I've done some work with a number of efforts that scientifically that have been, tasked with trying to figure out what's going on here. But the problem we have here is that, most of these animals are found too late to do the type of postmortem workups and testing that really should be done. Mm-hmm. A lot of these animals are free ranging. They're not found for 2, 3, 4 days.
Right.
And then by then, especially during the warmer months when most of these cases occur, from last frost to first frost, these animals are in a condition that does not lend itself to to be able to forensically examine them. So it's a big mystery. My book I've managed to take the major databases of the investigators that have been brave enough to look into this phenomenon. I've been able to coalesce and collate all their databases together. I'm very proud of this book. It took me 22 years to research, 18 months to write, and there's, I really look at our relationship with cattle. Cattle are the most detrimental life form on the planet besides humans. They're the largest source of freshwater pollution, the single largest creator of deserts besides humans, the single largest reason why we're cutting down the rainforest to make room for more cattle. I could go down the list. The second largest natural producer of ozone-depleting gases. I could go down the list. 1.37 billion cattle are on the planet, and industrialized beef protein could be our Achilles heel as in terms of the Western civilization. Mad cow disease is something that you don't hear about very often, but it is I think a real concern to the beef industry, which is the largest income producer in agriculture. Okay, the beef lobby is incredibly powerful, but you never hear about them.
Right.
Unless you're Oprah and you say you're never going to eat another hamburger again, and you get sued the next day for $2 billion.
Right.
You never hear about the beef lobby. And the reason is because McDonald's buys 1 billion pounds of beef. And you could have up to at least 100 animals in one Big Mac could be represented in that Big Mac. And there are some major issues surrounding prion disease. which is the misfolded protein that causes mad cow disease or Creutzfeldt-Jakob's disease in humans, chronic wasting disease in deer and elk, scrapie in sheep. I could go down the line. And isn't it interesting that we've had a 2,000% increase in dementia deaths in humans in the last 2 decades? A 2,000% increase. And dementia is one of the main symptoms of advanced prion disease.
Well, that explains a lot about me and this show. I'll tell you that right now.
I'm sorry.
No. I
flying to Mars with Barack Obama, but
right. Hey,
build stuff. There's thousands of pounds of physical evidence that I'm.
What's extraordinary to me is I would rather have the alien hypothesis come into play when it comes to cattle mutilations than our own government, big farm testing, kind of dark side in play here. I would rather have something else explain it than what could really be reality, and that's what scares the crap out of me.
Yeah, well, it should, and it should scare the crap out of everybody because, I do not eat industrialized beef protein. I try not to eat processed foods, period. I was very gratified to see that Carl's Jr., which is a chain out here in the West, that they've come out with an all-natural with no hormones, no steroids, growth hormone, steroids, and antibiotics, and they're grass-fed. You know that 80% of the antibiotics used in this country go into beef?
Yep.
And people wonder why the little 9-year-old girls are going into puberty. It's because they pump these animals full of growth hormones to get them out of the filthy conditions in the industrialized feedlots. And they have to give them so much antibiotics to keep them from getting sick, wading around in their own feces and urine.
Well, speaking of that, Chris, are there any cattle mutilation cases that have occurred in feedlots?
There have been, yes. Very few. The vast majority, 99% of cases, occur in herds of 500 animals or less.
Interesting.
And also another theory that has never been, addressed by the investigative community, which is a very small community, I might add. Now it's almost non-existent. One thing that I have been toying with, and I mentioned this rancher that 2 county sheriffs publicly named as aiding and abetting cattle mutilators. I think that a theory that has not been looked at is the theory that there's been an immense consolidation of rangeland around these giant feedlot facilities in the western and midwestern United States. And back in the height of the cattle mutilation phenomenon, which is also the height of per capita beef consumption in this country, it's been going downhill ever since 75, and at that height we had more cattle in this country in 75 than at any other time, which I think is very important. But at that time, if you look at all the ranching operations that were operating during that time period, 1975 in the mid-70s, if you go back and look at the numbers of ranches now, 70 to 75, 80% of those ranches are out of business.
Right.
And instead, there's these huge industrial ranching concerns that have taken over and are filling the gap there. And in the heart of the hardest hit areas, regions of the mutilation phenomenon, you have these giant feedlots that are now there. And I think that that's a smoking gun in my book. That's not by accident that you should have this correlation. The ranching business has really been dealt to, the private rancher, the small rancher has everything stacked against him. The price of beef is kept artificially low. They can't pay their bills. They can't make money because, the beef industry is so powerful, and they're just gobbling up the largest income producing sector of agriculture.
We're up against a break. We just went an hour straight without a break. I love it. Let's go ahead and take our break. Tonight, Christopher O'Brien is with us. We're touching upon everything. But when I come back, I want Christopher to think about this. What about pigs? We'll be back right after this. Stay with us.
Hi everybody, this is Rob Halford, the Metal Guard on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
KGRA Radio. Intelligent talk.
Are you a paranormal investigator, ghost hunter, or UFO skywatcher? If so, FNGinnovations.com has the product you definitely need in your investigations kit or go bag. Introducing the Morpholite Wide Beam Tactical Flashlights that put the light where you need it most. Traditional flashlights shine a focused round beam with limited line of sight in the dark. Morpholite Tactical Flashlights change all that, utilizing a revolutionary wide beam design to enable you to see safety hazards such as hanging wires and steel, pipes, and holes in the floor you just can't see with a focused round beam. In the field, where safety is paramount, a 180-degree beam increases orientation and peripheral vision in the dark. Morpholite flashlights are ideal for investigations in abandoned facilities such as houses and hospitals, factories, caves, and tunnels. Avoid those low-hanging tree branches that poke your eyes in the woods. Visit FNGinnovations.com to see a full line of tactical lights and accessories. That's FNGinnovations.com.
Now you can find all your favorite talk radio shows live, all in one place at TalkStreamLive.com. Listen from anywhere, office, home, or in your car. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com and click on one of the many live talk show hosts you want to listen to. It's free and easy. No computer? Download the smartphone apps. Never miss your favorite talk show. Find them all at TalkStreamLive.com.
Hey everybody, what's up? Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and check this out. The 2015 MUFON Symposium will be held this September 24th through the 27th in beautiful downtown Irvine, California. Expanding ufology, opening new doors in academia, industry, and media. Former Defense Minister of Canada Paul Hellyer will be there in person. Former CNN news anchor Cheryl Jones, TV news journalist Jaime Maussan, and MUFON's chief photo analyst Mark D'Antonio. They're just a few of the growing list of names for the 2015 event. It's September 24th through the 27th at the beautiful Hotel Irvine. Get your tickets today at MUFONSymposium.com. That's MUFONSymposium.com. Go Beckley Tepe.
You want to know a secret? I love ponies. I really love ponies. I'm serious. I couldn't stay sane without ponies to brush.
Why fade to black? Because you never got that pony. Damn
it. This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. Bespoke radio for the masses. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Christopher O'Brien is with us. And you know what? This is why I do this show. Right here. Man, the studio is dark tonight. I've got a couple of candles lit and just hanging out with Chris O'Brien. Chris, what about pigs or other animals? I mean, is there preponderance of that too as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Back in 71, before the cattle mutilation phenomenon was even identified, or people even had a sense that this was a mystery. The Snoopy the Horse case, of course, in 67 was the first internationally disseminated case of this type, and it was an international news story. But back in 71, in Iowa, Missouri, and Kansas, dozens and dozens, in one case, over 50 pigs disappeared. And then ranches and pig growing operations, whatever you want to call them, were reporting pigs being stolen, being rustled, and helicopters being seen. And again, as I mentioned before, this gave rise to vigilante groups being formed and people riding around with heavily armed in pickup trucks, 6 or 7 at a time, looking for these rustlers. And I think basically what you have happening here is they were taking these animals and they were I think my guess would be they were mutilating them, but they weren't returning them. They were just taking them. And of course, what happens when you take an animal? It's, a police report gets filed. It's grand theft. People get up in arms and stuff. And I think it's interesting to note that in 1972, we don't have a single case of an animal mutilation, a livestock mutilation in the entire United States. Not one case. And boy, David Perkins, my research associate in this book, and myself, David's been involved in this field since 75, a lot longer than me, and has one of the most extensive databases, if not the most extensive database of anyone. And we spent weeks combing through all the records, and we could find not a single case. And it's almost like they decided, well, wait a minute, we're creating too much of a problem by taking the animals. And in 73, you have the first cases where the animals are mutilated but left behind. So it's almost like they changed up their MO, and they started leaving the animals behind, because then there's plausible deniability. There's no police report. There's no people are not up in arms that they're being victimized by cattle rustlers or pig rustlers. And it's interesting to note that in 71, it started out with swine that were being stolen. I think over 50 in one particular case. We have cases that go back into the 40s in Missouri of pigs being mutilated, and swirls of grass found near them. Nick Redfern came up with an interesting FOIA document that talked about the U.S. government, 47, 48, 49, being very, very concerned about Russians sending secret agents over to infect livestock, as possibly with bacteriological weaponized bacteriological agents, and that was a real concern. And so you see that kind of concern in the 40s. You see the importation of diseased brains with prion disease from New Guinea, imported back to the Army Chemical Corps, and some of the the bacteriological weapons facilities back before the weapons ban, and then you see the first outbreak in nature of prion disease, and it probably escaped one of these labs in southern Wyoming. Another lab near Fort Collins, Colorado. This is back in the 50s and then into the 60s. And if you start doing your Agatha Christie kind of, Miss Marple sort of, looking at all the permutations and stuff that doesn't seem to be connected, but you start looking at these pathways of investigation and research, they all seem to kind of coalesce together, and these divergent threads of the rope then get tightly wound into a solid rope by the time you get to 73, 74, and especially in 75. And nobody has really taken an objective look at this mystery and entertained all possibilities, not dove into one particular explanation. It's ETs. Let me look for all the cases that can support an ET scenario as being the perpetrators, or let's look at only cases where helicopters were sighted. I'm looking at all of them, and I'm looking at them dispassionately, as objectively as possible. I'm not throwing anything in. I'm not factoring anything out. I'm just looking at where the evidence leads us, and you come up with a very, very interesting picture that has political and social overtones. It has health and environmental overtones, and it has overtones culturally that really put into question whether beef is a viable protein source, because there is so much. There's so many detrimental things surrounding cattle.
Yeah, and I can understand terrestrial research as being the bulk of it. It makes a lot of sense. But what about the ET hypothesis when it comes to this? Have you found cases where you couldn't tie in a terrestrial situation and that?
Yeah, there's been some cases that totally made the hair stand up on the back of my neck, and I'm thinking to myself, now this is physically impossible. I don't care how good of a veterinary pathologist, surgeon you are, you could not do this. And we've had cases where some of the top veterinary pathologists, Dr. John Andrews at Iowa State, for instance, he had a case that he got, they were able to take the fresh calf, it was just freshly slain and disfigured. They brought it to the university. They stuck it on a operating table. They brought in a calf that had just recently died, and they tried to duplicate the cuts. And he said, I am a world-class veterinary surgeon, and I had a really difficult time duplicating these cuts. I could do them all, but there's very few people that could do this. And when you have a world-class expert say, man, this was really tough for me to do, there's cases that are so perfect in the incisions that it would lead someone like that to either totally dismiss it because he gets freaked out. He doesn't want to, get tarnished with some sort of, Twilight Zone theme song.
Right.
And like a lot of the crime labs, especially in Colorado, New Mexico, in Kansas, the crime labs really had a hard time dealing with the political pressure from the ranching community in the 70s. But let's not forget, and there's a few things that we really, we should really focus on here, and that is, there's a number of them. I'm just trying to figure out which one I should talk about first, because I know we're running out of time here. But suffice it to say, let's just put it this way. The stranger the case, the least likely it is to be reported. And I mentioned that earlier. And these are the high strange cases that tend to defy any sort of human perpetrator scenario. We have a bunch of cases that have strange lights, markings left behind in fields that don't conform to conventional aircraft. We have cases where the Big Mama cases, for instance, on the Front Range of Colorado, where this huge UFO is seen discharging smaller UFOs that fly down and tend to be headed in directions where cattle are found subsequently mutilated. There are cases that do suggest that at its core there is a high strange, possibly paranormal or ET perpetrator, but these are way the exception. There's, in percentage-wise, maybe 5%, not even.
Right.
And that's after you factor out all the, natural, mundane explanations, unusual scavenger action, misidentified scavenger action, and those types of things. But one thing that I have always begged people like Chuck Zukowski, Margie Kay, and other, fairly new investigators into the field, the first thing they should do is look for cut hair follicles. Birds, coyotes, insects cannot cut hair in a perfectly straight line.
No, they tear it.
They tear between the hair.
Yes.
And if you find cut hair follicles, 99% of them, it's going to be a sharp implement. Out of all the cases I had tested, I only had 2 conclusively that were shown to have high heat as a cutting agent. 2 were possible. And then all the other cases, that it was demonstrated that something unusual happened in the disfiguring of the animal. In other words, it was done with intelligence. That was all done with cold, steel or a scalpel. And cut hair follicles, to me, is my first litmus test. And we need to get creative with our investigation techniques out in the field. I would take my brother's Pyrenees dog, and we would enter into the scene, and we would stay in the car, and we would let the Cato out. And Cato would go around, and the first thing he would do would sniff around the entire site. Only one case he didn't go, he was afraid of, by the way. Out of all the cases we went on, this whole idea that scavengers won't scavenge these animals, that's not true. It happens in a number of cases, sure, but you just can't use that as a blanket explanation. Whoa, scavengers won't go near it. It's not true. Snippy the horse was covered with bird droppings, for instance, and that's as soon as you introduce human scent into the equation, I think they lose their fear. But Cato would run around the site, he would sniff everything out, and he would pee wherever a coyote peed. And he would show us exactly where coyotes entered the scene. Obviously, in the West, coyotes are one of the biggest, suspects at the crime scene. And he would demonstrate to us exactly and show us exactly where the coyote sign was, so we could immediately go out there and find the coyote tracks and then track them and see how close they would get to the case and whether they would approach it and start chewing on it. I think birds are an underestimated perpetrator here. I think a lot of these cases that are misidentified scavenger action are actually perpetrated by crows, magpies, raptors, and other carnivorous birds.
What about internationally through the mid '70s when it really kicked up here in the United States? What was going on in Argentina and Brazil and these other beef exporting countries? The same phenomena down there?
It wasn't near as pervasive, or at least the research wouldn't suggest that it is. We can't really be 100% certain how pervasive it was. There were cases occurring there. There were cases in Central America, cases in Puerto Rico, weird outbreak on the Canary Islands. There were cases in Western Europe. There were seals have been found mutilated in the Orkney Islands with the same exact weird spiral cuts that don't conform to any natural known predator. We've had as many as 3 or 4 dozen dolphins wash up in the beaches of France with the same exact wounds around the neck. There's been thousands and thousands and thousands of domestic cats have been found.
The half cat, yeah,
in half.
Yeah.
The half cat mystery.
What do you make of
It
that?
started in Brentwood in 1970.
Yes, it did. Started right here in Southern California. Fullerton.
Yes, Fullerton. When the cases dried up in '99 in the U.S., we didn't have any cases in 2000 and 2001. In 2002, a huge outbreak occurred in South America with upwards of 3,000 cases being reported, some really bizarre ones. 19 mutilated cattle found in an impossibly drained stock tank that I think held 60,000 gallons, and they somehow drained it with not one drop of water outside of the tank. And then these, over a dozen animals were found mutilated inside the empty tank. There's been just substitute helicopter with UFO for the South American sightings. A lot of these sightings have unusual lights attached to them. And interestingly enough, it's almost like, whomever was doing this decided North America was getting too hot and there was too much scrutiny. And so, boom, they jumped down to right where a huge outbreak of hoof and mouth disease had just been eradicated. As they were inoculating the last herds, then boom, the mutilation started. I find that pretty interesting as a correlation.
Yeah, this half cat thing. What kind of conclusion are you drawing from that? I mean, that's pretty disturbing.
I have no idea. You got me on that one. That is really bizarre. And a lot of these cases are cats that happen to sneak out. They're inside.
Yes.
And they sneak out for one night, and they find them on the back lawn or the front lawn, perfectly snipped in half, and usually it's the back half that's missing.
It's bizarre.
Jamie, that is, and much to her credit, Linda Howe has really kept the pressure on in terms of getting word out about these cases. I really, I acknowledge her and thank her for her tireless work and really keeping that particular very bizarre mystery, front and center in many people's minds. But these are cases that really, I have no explanation for. I don't even have a theory.
Yeah, if we start having half dogs in the United States, then we'll get to the bottom of it.
Well,
if you know what I mean. Then
outbreak. Oh yeah, in Phoenix, there was an outbreak in the mid '90s of dogs.
Unbelievable. I can't think about it. It's disturbing. It's such a
every large American city in the West has had these outbreaks.
Is it? Do you think it's largely? Could it be? I was going to say copycat, but that would have been the wrong thing to say. But do you think it could be that, or could it be some kind of cultish, ritualish thing to do?
Well, if it is an organized cult type activity, that's scary because it's been all over. I mean, from Vancouver, BC to San Diego, all the way, west, Denver, Albuquerque, that whole western third of the country has had these cases, and there have been cases elsewhere, but predominantly the big outbreaks have been Salt Lake City, Denver, Phoenix, L.A., around the Seattle area. Portland has had cases.
Florida. Big.
Yeah, there have been cases in Florida. There have been cases elsewhere, but it's the real major outbreaks really have been in the West. And this is something that I need to do a little bit more digging into. I'm not as up to speed as someone like Linda.
Mm-hmm.
I've had my hands full with the larger animals. I must, kind of give myself a little disclaimer here. My least favorite thing in life is going out on a cattle mutilation case.
Yeah.
Really, I've been retired from it. It is the most really disturbing thing that I've really done in my life.
Yeah, I don't know how you do it.
I really abhor. I just shudder when I get a call about them.
I've said the same thing to Linda.
Disgusting.
Yeah, I don't know how you do it. Let me ask you this. I don't know why this just popped in my brain, but what about, oh man, and this might sound twisted, but what like in a country like India where cows are not eaten or killed?
Not one case, dude. And the sacred cow of India, the Brahma,
yes,
the breed of cows, one of the most ancient breeds and purest strains on the planet.
Yep.
We have 947 identified breeds of cattle out of 1.37 billion cattle on the planet that all, by the way, genetically have been traced back to a single herd in Iran in 10,500 years ago, a herd of 80 animals. Check that out. That's mind-blowing.
Yes.
But I have challenged any of the few researchers out there that are willing to take me up on this. I have yet to find a single case of a Brahma cow, calf, bull, or steer that's ever been reported mutilated anywhere.
Now that's interesting.
And there are tens and hundreds of thousands of Brahma cattle around the world.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Not one case.
I'm going to get you to hang on a little bit past, if that's okay. You don't have a choice. You're going to stay with us. I'm going to throw this out there and you just give me the nod. You give me the wink, wink. I know that you've got a really cool thing going on in a couple of months, and you know what I'm talking about. Do you want to talk about that a little bit and what you're going to be heading out to go and do? I don't want Men in Black.
Animal flesh.
Well, I don't want. We only have so much time left, and right. I would hate for the Smithsonian or some Men in Black thing, go and interfere with what you're going to go out and do with a pretty cool team of guys, too. By the way.
Yeah, it's quite an august assemblage. Back in 2012, I mounted an expedition, and this was all the idea of Gary David, who, as many of your listeners know, is an archaeoastronomer who has done some amazing work in the Southwest, equating the site of major villages and sacred sites as correlated in the sky to the constellation Orion and the stars around Orion, as above, so below. There is a very definite correlation between the star positions in the sky and the position of these sacred sites and villages. And Sirius, the dog star, is located right at the fabled location of the place of emergence for all the Pueblo people in the Southwest, for the most part. I'm generalizing a little bit, but definitely the most ancient of our indigenous people, probably the primordial Aboriginal cultures in North America are the Hopi, and then a little bit later on the Zuni.
Right.
And they both put their place of emergence, or the Sipapulima, as being right where the Little Colorado River Gorge meets Grand Canyon. And if you come up about a mile and a half upstream, up the Little Colorado, there's this travertine dome. It's about 70 feet in diameter. It's perfectly circular. It's a natural formation. It's where the Pueblo Indians got the idea of the ceremonial room called a kiva,
right.
the underground room.
Mm-hmm.
It's based on the place of emergence. And as the myth and the legend goes, when Creator decides to cleanse the earth of all the kahopi, or the false people, and he wants to, do like a Noah's flood type routine, which has happened on a number of occasions in the past. We're in the end of the fourth world right now, according to the Hopi. He warns the people, and they are told to gather up and go to the place of emergence, go underground to a huge underground complex where they're cared for generations while the earth is being cleansed, and they're protected by ant people. Interesting description. And then when it's safe to reemerge, then Creator sends Masa. The Kachinas come down. They tweak the genetics of the people. You know, they have web fingers and developing tails, and they have web feet and big bulgy eyes, kind of like Schmegel Gollum in the Lord of the Rings.
Right.
Just imagine living underground for generations. You'd probably look kind of weird. So anyway, the people are led above ground. They are divided up into clans and sent off in the 4 directions to populate the planet. Well, you know, this is, it's a myth. It's a legend. Yeah, it's probably, just all, hearsay and all this. Well, in 1909, a prospector was coming down into Grand Canyon down the Colorado River, and he was looking for evidence of ancient mining sites, paleo mine sites by the Indians, and he, had a loose association with the Smithsonian. So he happened to get just below Quadrant Rapids, and he climbed up, about 500 or 600 feet. I forget exactly how far he climbed up the cliff face there, and he happened to see what appeared to be a doorway, an unnatural opening into the cliff face that couldn't be seen from the river, and it couldn't be seen from the rim. At that point, the rim to the river is about 4,500 feet, and so he, at great personal peril, as he put it, he climbed up there and discovered this underground facility. An underground city that later was estimated by him and S.A. Jordan from the Smithsonian as being able to handle upwards of 50 to 60,000 people. Now, this is a huge, immense, complex if it exists. And, of course, a big article was written in the Phoenix Gazette. Of course, the debunkers say, oh, it's just, sensationalism. They were trying to get, trying to titillate new subscribers into subscribing, blah, blah, blah. But according to sources, locals and others, the Smithsonian did camp out there for 3 months. They did go in there. They explored extensively. They found allegedly Proto-Egyptian and what appeared to be like Buddhist artifacts, metal tools, a seated Buddha, 33 mummies, and in one count, 109 truckloads of artifacts were taken out and put in that same warehouse where the Ark of the Covenant was wheeled into at the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark. I was wondering what was in those other boxes. Maybe that's what was in them. If art is imitating life.
Right.
Anyway, in 2012, I mounted an expedition to go out to find Kincaid's cave entrance, and I had a helicopter drone pilot that was going to fly and map that. We've narrowed it down to about a quarter mile, half mile stretch of the Marble Canyon rim there. And we know approximately, how far up from the river, how far down from the rim to map. But we had a 50-mile-an-hour wind the whole time we were there. It was howling, 98 degrees. It was nasty. And we weren't able to fly the drone. But, David Hatcher-Childress, dear friend, accompanied us, Gary David, Ron Regehr, who was involved with optics for many of our satellite systems from Skylab all the way to the late 90s. And he's also a petroglyph expert. J.C. Johnson, one of my favorite fireside storytellers, is a river guide. We had a Navajo security person there. And Clifford Mahooty, another very dear friend who's a Zuni elder and a civil engineer with a world-class expertise in environmental assessment. And since we were kind of skunked on that trip, we've decided to do a return visit, and we're going to be going out there this fall. And I have a professional drone pilot who can fly in any weather, super state-of-the-art equipment, and we're going to mount a team on the river with climbers and spelunkers, and we're going to spend a couple days mapping this portion of the cliff face, descending from the rim down to the river, and hopefully, if we can find this actual entrance location, the team on the river will then climb up and possibly be the first ones to enter this complex since 1909. I don't know if this story is real. I have a feeling that there is some truth to the Hopi legend. I've talked to quite a number of Native American sources over the years about this particular facility. It's not the only one in Grand Canyon. The Zuni have another facility that's on the other side of the river, on the north rim side, and there's some pretty tantalizing evidence that there's other archaeological finds that can be discovered. We're going to concentrate on this alleged Kincaid entrance, and we think we have it narrowed down to a manageable chunk of real estate that we can I think effectively cover with this real super drone with a very, very state of the art camera. And
let's take a quick break right there.
Okay.
I've actually got a story about that camera when we come back.
Cool.
This is Fade to Black. Hold on here. I just there it goes. Okay, we're good. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Christopher O'Brien is with us. We're talking about his expedition that is going to be kicking off here in a couple of months in the Grand Canyon. More on that when we come back right after this. Stay with us.
And you are listening to my boy, Jimmy Church, on jimmychurchradio.com.
Despite popular opinion, reading a book will not make you smarter.
But listening to Jimmy Church will.
Attention, all Fade or Not. Studio Dome has a special deal on their SD1 Bluetooth speaker. Just go to jimmychurchradio.com, click on their banner, enter the promo code Jimmy, and you get $40 off and free shipping on the SD1. It's voice activated, comes with a USB antenna, cables, and a carry bag. Never listen to your phone, tablet, or laptop speakers ever again. It's the only way to listen to Fade to Black. That's jimmychurchradio.com, Studio Dome banner, promo code Jimmy. Go Beckley Teppy.
Erica, Brittany, Gabby, and you're listening to jimmychurchradio.com.
It's not a lifestyle we chose. We were born this way. KGRAradio.com.
Hey, everybody, what's up? Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and check this out. The 2015 MUFON Symposium will be held this September 24th through the 27th in beautiful downtown Irvine, California. Expanding ufology, opening new doors in academia, industry, and media. Former Defense Minister of Canada Paul Hellyer will be there in person. Former CNN news anchor Cheryl Jones, TV news journalist Jaime Maussan, and MUFON's chief photo analyst Mark D'Antonio. They're just a few of the growing list of names for the 2015 event. It's September 24th through the 27th at the beautiful Hotel Irvine. Get your tickets today at MUFONsymposium.com. That's MUFONsymposium.com. Go Beckley Teppy.
This is KJCR at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. What a great night tonight. Christopher O'Brien with us all night long. Twitter, my goodness gracious, I haven't seen it this lit up in a long time, and I'll try to get some of these questions into Chris before we let him go. Hey, Chris, I wanted to tell you about Gary and his drone. At Contact in the Desert, Rita and I, we pull up. We're going to this little pre-event party, right? A get-together with all the speakers. So we pull up, and there's Gary. He's standing out there, and I'm like, what is he doing? You know, and I see his remote control, and I walk up, and I see the drone. Now, we posted the video or the stills of this on Facebook this week because he just sent me the footage that he shot. And I see the drone, and the drone is about, I'm going to say, a quarter mile away, maybe 500-600 feet in the air. It's a little tiny black dot, right? I can barely see it. And when you go and look at these pictures on our Facebook page, you'll understand what I'm trying to say here. I'm looking up and I'm squinting, and I'm like, okay, I see it. And then I look down at his remote control. He's got the high-def screen, right, mounted to the remote.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at myself. And I'm like, wait a minute, and I look back at the drone, and I'm like, no way. And I look down, and it's my face, high-def,
right,
crystal clear, stabilized, not wiggling, not jittering, and I'm freaking out. I'm like, you have that's what a drone can actually do?
Oh, yeah, especially in the hands of a skilled, licensed, bonded, insured pilot,
Like he is, yes. Yeah. And then he drew, this is the other thing, he zoomed back, right? He zoomed all the way back, and then I'm looking at us, looking at the drone, and now we're just this little tiny group of people standing in the dirt, right, out in the desert. And then he zooms up again, all the way up on our faces. And you have to see my face in these pictures because I'm at a holy crap moment. Like, no way.
I'm looking forward to working with Gary, believe me.
He is so good. And not only is he skilled as a pilot, but damn it, the equipment.
Yeah.
And so to be able to take that I'm telling you right now, but I'm saying to our audience, when you're going to take something like that out into the Grand Canyon, this isn't some fuzzy little video thing. This is what Steven Spielberg uses. This is like
it's pretty much state of the art. And one thing that I must kind of emphasize here is we're outside of the boundaries of Grand Canyon National Park, where it's illegal to fly drones. So we'll be over unrestricted airspace and where it's legal to fly. So we're I think we're well positioned to, make some serious headway. Over the years, there have been a number of researchers. Jack Andrews is one of the main ones who spent decades chasing down this particular claim by Kincaid. And we think based on David Childress's work, Jack's work, Gary David's work, my own work, the help of some Native American sources, we feel confident that we've narrowed this particular target area down to a manageable 2-day survey. And, with Gary's obvious, skill as a pilot, and a fairly targeted location, we feel pretty confident that we're going to be able to ID this location. And I just wish I was 20 years younger. I have technical rock climbing training. I'd have to lose about 30 pounds and really start working out to even consider climbing up to that particular location. But man, how exciting would it be to finally either validate and confirm this very, very controversial claim, once and for all. It would really be historic. Because according to Kincaid, they only checked out the front portion of the complex, which they estimated could hold between 50 and 60,000 people.
Right.
That may be an overestimate. We don't know. But the reason why they didn't go back into the deep recesses of the complex was because it had this overpowering smell of reptiles. So, Carrie and David and Ike and others will probably get a kick out of hearing that. But there may be tons of artifacts in there. There may be, all sorts of any manner of things. However, in 2012, when we got skunked because of the wind, we tried to go on the rim up the Little Colorado and get above the place of emergence so that Clifford Mahooty could do a blessing. And while we were there, all of a sudden we encountered illegal helicopter flights flying construction equipment and big pipes and other things down into the gorge. And this is that portion of the terrain there is off limits to flights. And so, Clifford was really upset about it. And thank goodness we had a big gust of wind that came up and obscured what he was saying on the microphone, because he let out a string of words that I was shocked to hear him say.
What were
he
they
was so upset?
Where were they? Were you able to find out what they were doing and where they were going to?
No, I called everyone. I called the park. I called the Navajo. I called every airport, every any sort of aerial operation, anyone that would have anything to do or possibly have anything to do with any sort of flights in the area. And everybody was scratching their heads saying, we have no idea who this is. The closest we came was someone said, oh, they're repopulating the humpback chub in the Little Colorado. And it's like, well, no, they don't have them in the Little Colorado.
The humpback chub.
Chub, yeah, it's an endangered fish that
right.
Since the Glen Canyon Dam and all the cold water coming down, now the warm water fish are having a problem. But so Gary David, in some of his phone calls, found out that the Navajo want to build a casino right above where the underground city is. And so Clifford immediately said, well, they've already been working underground. They're going to have a casino for Joe Sixpack on top. And if you have a pass key to the elevator that you can, and you're one percenter, you can go all the way down to the basement, and that's where the real action is. So he's convinced that they've already cleaned out a small portion of the facility under there, and it's going to be some sort of mucky muck, Mount Weather, sort of Hot Springs, Arkansas kind of underground facility. He's convinced of that. So I don't know if you go to my if you do a YouTube search, Expedition to Sipapu, SIPAPU, there's a 30-minute video that I put together of our first trip out in 2012, and you can see video footage of one of these helicopters flying with all this gear slung 50 feet underneath it on a long cable. So we're really excited about it. Things seem to be aligning schedule-wise. I'm dealing with a lot of busy people with some pretty involved schedules in the fall, but everybody's making time for it. David Weatherly is also going to be joining us, and another couple of folks are going to be invited as well, depending on whether they can carve out the time. But I'm real excited about it. I've always loved, lost mines and lost treasure. I hunt dinosaur fossil as one of my many hobbies, and I love the idea of being able to confirm a very, very controversial story like this, and if we're able to find an entrance and demonstrate it, it's going to be a big newsworthy story. I will be doing a full video shoot of the entire operation as well.
Yeah, and good luck with everything. But before I let you go, I want to back up and back to Kincaid for a second. He was never, the story itself was never debunked or poo-pooed. Nobody was ever busted for concocting a hoax or the newspaper stories were fabricated. None of that ever happened. And then he actually went on to a career at the Smithsonian, or they offered him one when
that's F.A. Jordan, the guy that supposedly came out from the Smithsonian. When they were contacted.
Yeah. But what I meant, yes, you're right. But what I meant to say was it was the Smithsonian that was involved to begin with, and the story itself was never really proven to be a hoax either way.
No, in fact, the Smithsonian denied that S.A. Jordan, someone named that, was never worked for the Smithsonian, and then come to find out that he was actually offered chairmanship of the Smithsonian.
Right.
And went on to found Stanford University.
So that's the part of the Kincaid story that, to me, there's something to it. They couldn't control the media back then. That if you're going to go to print, it's just going to go to print, and the story got out. And that's the thing. It never really. There were any journalist, any writer that was doing those sensational stories back then, well, he was outed. It was proven that
fairly quickly, yeah. And there has been some attempts over the years to dismiss the story, and there's a certain body of evidence to suggest that it may have been a concocted story, but there is too much about it rings true. And a lot of digging has been done by people like David Childress and Jack Andrews and Gary and myself and others. And we have uncovered some information that Kincaid was a real guy. He's buried in Idaho. He did have he was a kind of a paid bird dog, sort of a field, throwing leads back to the Smithsonian. He was paid to do that. And we do know that he did spend a considerable amount of time in the area. And, there's too much of it that, if it had been debunked, if somebody had come out and said, yeah, this was all just a big publicity stunt or whatever, I wouldn't be bothering to spend this kind of time and resources to locate it. We have enough tantalizing evidence and supportive. The Native American side has never really been adequately addressed, I think, in this sense. And Clifford has been very helpful in supplying me with some information that has never been made public about facilities around the confluence. And this whole idea of putting a casino there, I hope that they don't go through with it. I have nothing against Indian casinos. In fact, I won $3,000 at one point. So I think that they're wonderful. I think the Red Mansion.
Oh, I lost you. Are you there? We just lost Christopher. Christopher, are you there? No, we've lost Christopher. Okay, you know what? I'm going to take a quick break, see if I can get him back. We have to do a proper send-off. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Let me get this going. Boom. And I will get Christopher right back after this break. This is Fade to Black, bespoke radio for the masses. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Lost Christopher. He'll be back right after this. We can't let somebody go at the end of the show so quickly. Follow us on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Email Jimmy at jimmychurchradio.com. I'll be back with Christopher O'Brien right after this. Stay with us.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
The station that talks the net. KGRA Radio.
Hello, I'm Katie, and you're listening to my main man, Jimmy Church, on jimmychurchradio.com.
Hi, this is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black. Today, everybody, the Fadernauts and planet Earth is vaping, and I'm very proud to announce our very own e-juice. When we were approached by City of Angels Vapor about Fade to Black e-juice, I wanted to make sure that it was the very best, and that the flavors were something that I could create myself, and we did just that. Introducing Fade to Black Fader Loops. This will take you right back to Saturday morning cartoons and your favorite bowl of fruity, loopy cereal. Just click on the banner or go to www.coavapor.com. Enter the promo code Jimmy for the Fader Not special. That's www.coavapor.com. Go back, Lee Tappy.
Hi, this is Ray Hobbs here, repping the planet, and you're listening to my good friend, Jimmy Church, Fade to Black, on the Game Changer Network and the KGRA Digital Broadcast Station.
Imagine no longer being tied down to your computer, but having the freedom to take live talk radio with you anywhere you go. TalkStream Live introduces our first ever iPhone application. The talk shows you follow now follow you. And your iPhone is now the fastest and easiest way to stay connected to the best talk radio on the internet. Let TalkStream Live transform the way you listen to radio. Listen to live talk shows 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Mobile talk radio from TalkStream Live. Now available in the iTunes App Store.
This is Toby Kebbell. You're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com. Don't hurt me, Jimmy. I'm only little.
Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier.
And this is Ari Gold.
We're the Honey Brothers.
Yes.
We're of the Honey Brothers. Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier.
And I'm Ari Gold.
We're the Honey Brothers.
And you're listening to Jimmy Church.
The Revolution.
Attention, all Fadernauts. Studio Dome has a special deal on their SD1 Bluetooth speaker. Just go to jimmychurchradio.com, click on their banner, enter the promo code Jimmy, and you get $40 off and free shipping on the SD1. It's voice activated, comes with a USB antenna, cables, and a carry bag. Never listen to your phone, tablet, or laptop speakers ever again. It's the only way to listen to Fade to Black. That's jimmychurchradio.com, Studio Dome banner, promo code Jimmy. Go Beckley Teppy.
This is Micah Hanks of the Gralien Report, and you're listening to Jimmy Church on Fade to Black, across the globe on the Game Changer Radio Network and the one and only KGRA Radio, The Planet.
All right, welcome back, Fade to Black. Tonight, Christopher O'Brien is with us. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. What a great show. All right, let's do this. Christopher, I wanted to bring you back. We got to do a proper send-off, man. That was just bizarre. That was
was weird.
Yeah, it was just a mid-sentence. It was like Smith-son. Click.
Hey, it wasn't me, dude.
Yeah, you gotta love it. Really quick, website, and where's the best place to get your books?
Well, you can go to OurStrangePlanet.com. One word. It's a strange planet. It's OurStrangePlanet.com is my website. And I need to get on there, and I've got a bunch of stuff I need to post up there to catch everybody up. Also, of course, I am co-host of the Paracast, Paracast, the Paracast, put a THE in front of it. We have a weekly show on Sunday. We've been broadcasting for 8 years, and we have a great forum community. And really appreciate you inviting me on, Jimmy. Thanks so much, man. I look forward to coming back. We just kind of scratch the surface.
Yeah, we did, and I really want to bring you back to talk about some crypto stuff. I want to talk about all forms of paranormal, everything that we didn't get into tonight. And you're absolutely right. We just scratched the surface. And of course, after this expedition, you're going to announce everything here and not over at the Paracast first. I'm just letting you know. I'm going to talk to Gene. I'm going to talk to Gene and get him to say, you know what, Church, okay, we'll get him on Coast. I guess we'll do that first. Thank you so much, Chris. I had just an amazing time tonight, and I hope you enjoyed yourself too.
I did, and thank you very much. It's a great show. I'm really looking forward to hearing more episodes in the future. And anytime you want me back, or if you want me on the emergency guest list, just let me know.
You got it, and tell Gene, to stay out of trouble. Okay, give him my best.
I promise.
I'll talk to you. Thank you so much, Chris.
Cool, man.
Christopher O'Brien, everybody. And yes, host of the Paracast, by the way. That is one of the longest running paranormal shows out there. And him and Gene do a great job. So if you ever get a chance, go check out the Paracast. And that's it. What a great show tonight. I wanted to say this really quick. I was going to do this at the beginning of the show. But this show doesn't cover politics. It's just one of the things that I don't do here. There's no reason to go there. I could do 5 hours a night of politics. It's an easy thing to do. It's so easy. A guy like Rush Limbaugh can do it every day of his life because it's a never-ending wealth of stuff to talk about. But it's also easy to do. But this is a show about big government, conspiracy, world events, and the like. And I've got to tell you, I just want everybody to ponder this. I was thinking over the last couple of days, and I was talking to a couple of friends of mine on the phone about this situation that's going down with Trump. And what I find bizarre, and I want everybody to think about this tonight, this is what's really weird, is you have this thing that is happening right in front of us in real time that we can study and we can analyze. Okay? We have right in the middle of an election cycle, and we have about 4 dozen Republicans in the race on that side of the fence. And then we have whatever's going on the Democratic side. And then you got this guy coming along with a bad comb over with all of the money in the world, Trump, who is able to manhandle both sides of the fence and the media and get away with it. Now, what is the end game here, and what is the intention? And the bizarre thing when it comes to conspiracies and what's going on, I want everybody to just witness how this is starting to play out. I don't know who is contributing to his campaign, okay? But I do know that he's basically funding the whole thing by himself because he can. So if he is not influenced by campaign donations and big company, big pharma, big this, big that, and oil and everything else that comes into play here, and he's not influenced by that, therefore he doesn't care about anybody, about big companies, about DC, about the military establishment, food, all of the big corporations and conglomerates that are out there, communications, everything. And if that is indeed the case, then he is not influenced by money to make his decisions on how he runs his mouth. And because of that, now, where you have the two big mass media outlets, Fox and CNN being Democratic, Fox being Republican, and CNN is giving Trump more airtime because he doesn't care about Fox. And Fox knows this. But Fox cannot move forward without supporting the Republican guy. And right now that guy happens to be Trump, and they're peeing all over each other. And then he goes back and apparently is made up. And they've kissed and made up over on that side because they know that they can't let him run away and then go and get more support from CNN because he doesn't care about either and doesn't have to. Now, what is actually going on here? There is a conspiracy going on right in front of us. We've got all kinds of criminals and politicians and companies that they've got a guy here that they can't control. And if he goes in any direction, it's going to influence what the future is. It's an amazing situation. We've never had this kind of opportunity to observe ever in the history of this country. And we're watching it happen in real time. Now, I don't know how it's going to play out. Whenever we have an election cycle, me personally, I sit on my hands and I just watch it play out in front of me because it is completely out of my control, your control, our control. And whoever gets elected into office, and it's the same old, and we're going down the same old path, and it's going to be the same old thing. But this time it's different. You can feel it, you can see it, and it's tangible. So I'm asking you, my audience, just observe what's really going on here. We have politicians that don't have control. When Trump made the comment at the debate last week, when he said, "Everybody up here, I've given money to," right? And everybody looked down. Nobody contested him. And he said, "Everybody up here has asked me for favors." And when he said that, nobody challenged him. Not the Fox host, not the candidates on stage. Nobody said anything. And that was the most telling statement of the entire evening, which is all of Washington is bought and paid for. And we're watching this go on in front of us in real time. I have no horse in this race. I don't want one. But what I am doing is keeping my eyes wide open. And I'm watching this play out right in front of us. It is absolutely amazing. Somebody running his mouth that nobody can influence or control. And you need to think about that for a second. It has never happened before. What is the end game? How is this going to play out? I have no idea. But there is an agenda in the works. Keep your eyes open. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. What a great show tonight. I've got to thank Christopher O'Brien for coming in. Absolutely an amazing show tonight. Great conversation. Very smart guy. I feel a little smarter. Do you? This is Fade to Black. Our executive producer is the one and only Rita Kamarian. Show is produced by Hilton J. Paul, Mark D. Kovar, LJ3, Renee, Mark Dunbar, and Jonas. Announcers are Steve Harder, Gene Vito, and Mark D. Kovar. Fady by Dale. Webmaster is Method of Signaling. Music, Doug Aldrich. Intro, Spaceboy. SpaceboyMusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network. Syndication, KGRA, The Planets. Tomorrow night, open lines all night long. It is Thursday night. It is Fader night, my favorite night of the week. Let's light it up. Follow us on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Email is Jimmy@JimmyChurchRadio.com. I want everybody to be safe. And until tomorrow night, see ya.